Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Ninja World. Start with a shock fruit, save Tsunade from War Demigod. Chapter 1. Konoha 34 years. At this time, it was in the middle of the Second Ninja World War. The war has reached a fever pitch. The country of fire, the country of earth, the country of wind, the country of thunder, and the 5 kingdoms of the ninja world have launched a full-scale war, except for the country of water, which is still watching. And the most prosperous country of fire in the ninja world has become the target of several major powers. At this time, as the kingdom of fire, the kingdom of earth, the kingdom of wind, and the kingdom of rain, it became the main battlefield of the 3 kingdoms. For a time, the kingdom of rain was devastated by the war between the 3 kingdoms. Blood flowed into rivers, and mourning was everywhere. The war between the 3 major countries also completely angered Hanzo, who is known as the demigod of the ninja world. He immediately led the Rain Shinobi village in the Land of Rain, and declared war on Konoha, Sand Shinobi, and Rock Shinobi at the same time. Suddenly, the originally chaotic war became even more chaotic. The hinterland of the Rain country. Yes, it's Hanzo, the demigod of the ninja world, Hanzo of the salamander. How did Hanzo appear here? Boom, 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 ah, ah, ah. Kill, follow Hanzo-sama and rush. Kill it. Water style. Water dragon bomb technique. Earth style earth formation wall. Konoha shinobi obeyed. We held Hanzo, everyone retreated, Orochimaru, Jiraiya, we went up together, strange force, fist. Boom. At this time, on this chaotic battlefield, Konoha and Rain Shinobi launched a fierce battle. For a time, all kinds of ninjutsu were flying, stumps were broken, and corpses were everywhere. It is conceivable that the war cruel. And in this cruel battlefield, at the edge of a ruined wall, a forehead protector with a Konoha, half leaning on the ruins, a boy of about 12 or 13 years old, looking at the rain falling from the sky, the eyes are a little empty. Under the boy's body, a pool of blood, washed by the rain, spread to the surroundings. At this time, the boy's hand was covering his abdomen, but the blood was still flowing out as if he didn't want money. Are you going to die? Haha, maybe I'm the most trashy traveler ever. The young man looked at the gloomy sky and heard the sound of fighting in his ears, then lowered his head and looked at his belly that was bleeding continuously. A bitter smile appeared on his dirty face. The boy's name is Yi Ming. Of course, he didn't call him that name originally. Because, he is a traverser from Blue Star. Yi Ming before crossing was just an unknown, helpless, big otaku who made a living from online articles. But it was because of continuous coding all night, falling asleep and opening his eyes again, he found that he had crossed into the world of Hokage. Moreover, when he crossed over, he was a baby who had just been born, his parents sacrificed to the sky, and was entrusted to the Konoha hospital. In fact, Yi Ming was a little excited when he first learned that he had traveled to the Hokage world. Because, in his previous life, he was also a helpless orphan with no connections and no one to rely on, so he could only live at the bottom and struggle, with no hope of climbing up. But coming to the world of Hokage is different. This is a world where the strong are respected, and he is just writing novels to mess around. It is very clear that usually a traveler like him is simply talented, full of golden light, and a proper protagonist life. When his cheat arrives, wouldn't he immediately kick the 6 Paths class, punch the Sage of 6 Paths, and press Kagaya G? Senju Hashirama. What about me? Am I not qualified? And, what world is this? Hokage world. Rely on what? Bloodline. A traverser like him, someone with destiny, not a Sharingan, Rinnegan, Tensegan. Can this be called a traverser? Therefore, Yi Ming, who had just crossed over, was still a baby, and the smile on his little face never stopped, which made the nurses and the doctors think that this little guy was a fool with his head clipped when he was born. In short, Yi Ming, who just passed through, is full of hope and light for his future. However, as the saying goes, the ideal is beautiful, but the reality is very skinny. When Yi Ming waited for months without waiting for the legendary cheat system, and Grandpa, he felt a little disappointed. However, that was just a little bit. After all, even if there is no cheat in the Hokage world, if you have Uchiha, Senju, or Hyuga bloodline, anyway, as long as you can have a bloodline related to the Otsutsuki clan, he firmly believes that he can also become stronger through hard work. However, the reality not only slapped him on the right cheek, but also did not let go of his left cheek. Because he learned from those nurses and sisters that his parents in this life are just two civilian ninjas, his mother is just a genin, his father is okay, and Neema's is a so powerful chunin. This Neema is a cannon fodder level character. However, Yi Ming, who had no cheat and no blood, was not completely desperate. Since you can't become a ninja ceiling like Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama, then become a ninjutsu doctor like Sarutobi Hiruzen, Senju Tobarama, and a forbidden technique scientist. Or a genius ninja like Namikaze Minato, isn't that difficult? No matter how bad it is, he is also a traverser who has read through Hokage, and has studied the technique of rolling balls. There should be no problem in saving his life, right? But, it is but. This time, God not only hit him in the left and right faces, but also stabbed him in the heart. With the goal of aligning with Sarutobi Hiruzen, Senju Tobarama, Namikaze Minato, Yi Ming stayed in Konoha for 4 years, and finally he can refine chakra and learn ninjutsu. Yi Ming, who was so excited, just started refining chakra, as if a basin of cold water had poured it over from the beginning to the end. For nothing else, the ninjutsu talent of his body is almost limitless. Not to mention the difficulty of refining chakra, it is still very small, just the amount of 0.1 Kakashi. Kakashi, are you polite? Closing parenthesis. And, chakra's control is also extremely poor. In this case, Yi Ming, let alone the development of the ball rolling technique, even the three-body technique could not be used well. Yi Ming, who was extremely disappointed and even a little desperate, knew that he had no chance with ninjutsu. He had no choice but to lower his demands on himself again, and set his sights on Might Dai, the father of King Guy who almost kicked out the finale. Fortunately, his great, flickering technique, can still be used. After a flickering pass, Yi Ming began to become friends with Might Dai of 10,000 Years Genin, and began to learn taijutsu from him. And, after a few years of hard work, got the 8 Inner Gates practice method from Might Dai. In this way, Yi Ming went from kicking the 6 Paths class, punching the Sage of 6 Paths, and pressing the great goal of Kagaya-ji, to a passerby who only hopes to survive in the ninja world. However, with the outbreak of the Second Ninja World War, Yi Ming, who just wanted to live and had not completely graduated from the ninja school, went to the battlefield at the age of 10. Looking at the gloomy sky, Yi Ming felt that his body became colder and colder, and his consciousness became more and more confused. He knew that his time was really coming. Sorry, Kushina, I'm afraid I'll break my promise. Yi Ming looked at the sky, a figure with red hair slowly appeared in front of him. You must come back alive. I'll wait for you. In his mind, thinking of that person's appearance, Yi Ming's small face full of dirt showed a bitter smile again, and his consciousness became more and more confused. Ding! The charging is complete. The plundering system of the heavens is turned on, and the system is activating. Ding! The plundering system of the heavens has been activated. Ding! It is detected that the host is about to die, and the only permission for the host is enabled. Just as Yi Ming's consciousness became more and more blurred, a series of voices suddenly sounded in his mind. Immediately afterwards, his heart, which was getting weaker and weaker, was about to stop beating, as if it had been beaten with chicken blood. Dong dong dong. Yi Ming suddenly opened his eyes and sat up straight. I am. Yi Ming looked at the wound on his abdomen, recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his heart was full of disbelief. Immediately afterwards, Yi Ming's heart beat violently a few times, his face showed undisguised excitement, and he said with a trembling voice, "System." Yi Ming waited expectantly for the system's reply, and was afraid it was all a dream. In Yi Ming's expectation and anxiety, the sound of the system sounded again in his mind. Ding! The only permission of host has been used, and this permission is permanently closed. Ding! System activated. Ding! System function introduction has been released. Hearing the system voice in his mind, Yi Ming didn't wait for Yi Ming to be happy. Then, a lot of information entered his mind. In a moment, does the heavens plunder? After absorbing the function introduction of the system, Yi Ming licked his chapped lips, raised his head to pick up some rainwater and drank it, with a smile like never before on his face. The function of the system is very simple and direct. The so-called plunder is not the ability of the system to help him plunder other people's ability, blood, etc. Instead, let him plunder the entire world and become the master of the world. System. If you want me to be the master of the world, with my current strength, it's like lighting a lamp in the toilet. Don't you have a little startup capital for me? Quote. Yi Ming retracted his mind and asked the system in his heart. Ding. The novice gift package has been distributed. Do you want to open it? Open. Ding. The novice package is opening. Ding. Congratulations to host for getting 1 shock fruit improved version. Ding. Congratulations to host for getting 1 shock fruit improved version. Ding. Congratulations to the host for getting Sage Body beginning. Ding. Congratulations to the host for getting Full Attribute Chakra. There are not many items in the novice gift pack, but each one made Yi Ming's heart beat several times. Not to mention Sage Body and Full Attribute Chakra. The shock fruit alone made Yi Ming ecstatic. Yes. Yi Ming is already very satisfied. Even if the system only gave him 3 things, and didn't let him become a person in the air in seconds like other Traverser predecessors, he was already very, very satisfied. The cruelty of the ninja world has taught him to be content with the cruelty of the ninja world in the past few years. The edges and corners of the time when he crossed over have also been smoothed out by so many years of experience. And, in his opinion, with these 3 things, if he can't stand firm in this world, he'll just die. Whoosh! Yi Ming's heart moved, and suddenly, a strange fruit full of patterns appeared in his hand. This is the shock fruit in the world of pirates that claims to have the ability to destroy the world. Yi Ming looked at the shock fruit in his hand, with a smile on his face. He took a bite. Introduce. Shock fruit improved version, from the world plundering system to the current world environment. The improved devil fruit, after eating the fruit, has no weakness of fear of sea water. The ability of devil fruit becomes its own blood. Yi Ming ate the improved version of shock fruit one by one without leaving a single bit. Although Yi Ming knew that devil fruit only needed 1 bite, he still ate it all, even though it was extremely unpalatable. But compared to the various experiences over the years in his own life, what can this be? After reading the introduction of the improved version of shock fruit, after eating shock fruit, Yi Ming let the system integrate the Sage Body and the Full Attribute Chakra. After feeling the changes in his body, he slowly stood up. Yi Ming's deep eyes looked at his right hand. Next up, right hand fist. Duo. Suddenly, a circle of milky white halo slowly appeared around his fist. Yi Ming looked at the milky white halo, and suddenly had the urge to laugh out loud. Shock fruit. The power of vibration. This has the power of shaking to destroy the world. In another world, the owner of this power has the title of the strongest man in the world. Now that he also possesses such power, how could Yi Ming not be excited after so many years of brutal training but unable to resist? After the excitement, Yi Ming's expression suddenly darkened, and he sighed slightly. Alas! Although this power is powerful, it doesn't have a strong physique like Whitebeard, and it is impossible to display the posture that this power should have. Moreover, the anti-shock power of this power alone is like my chronic poison, even for me, who has a low-level sage body. Quote. Anyone who has seen pirates knows that the power of vibration can trigger natural disasters such as earthquakes and tsunamis. But this kind of vibrational force, when activated, will also produce a shock-reversing force. If the owner of shock fruit activates a 10th level shock power, it is possible to have a 2-level or 3-level anti-shock power, which acts on the owner. That is to say, the stronger the vibration force is, the stronger the anti-shock force will be. If the owner of the power of shock does not have a strong physique, sooner or later, he will be killed by himself. And this is why, after so many years in the pirate world and so many shock fruit owners in the past, only Whitebeard has the title of the man who can destroy the world. Without the physique of Whitebeard, the sage body is not bad. And, if you can gain resilience like Senju Hashirama. Yi Ming muttered to himself, and then his eyes turned to the system again. Name, Yi Ming. Bloodline. Sage body beginning. Chakra attributes. Earth, water, wind, thunder, fire, yang, yin. Blood followers boundary. Shock escape. Forbidden technique. 8 inner gates, 3rd gate. Ninjutsu. 3 body technique. Earth style, earth rock wall, earth style. Comprehensive strength. Quasi shadow. Looking at his personal attributes on the system, Yi Ming showed a slight smile. It seems that these years of physical training have not been in vain. 8 inner gates and shock fruit. Oh no, it should be called shock escape, so I have the power of quasi-shadow. At this time, Yi Ming, although he had never fought against anyone before, but after years of physical training, he had a good understanding of his own strength. Before obtaining the Jundun and Sage body, relying on physical skills, it can barely be regarded as an elite genin level. And he who opened the 8 inner gates' 3rd gate has the power to fight against elite Chunin, and even, by surprise, he can kill elite Chunin. But now, he has obtained the transformation of Jundun and Sage body. Not only the body has been increased, but also the amount of chakra that can be almost drained by releasing AC rank ninjutsu has also been improved by leaps and bounds. Now, even if he doesn't open 8 inner gates, relying on Gen Dun alone, he has the confidence to kill a special Jonin by himself. And if the 8 inner gates' 3rd gate is opened, coupled with Gen Dun's terrorist attack power, his strength will directly reach the level of quasi-shadow. This kind of strength improvement is not terrifying. Suddenly, Yi Ming's heart moved, and his deep eyes became brighter. Originally, my physique could only barely open the 3rd gate of 8 inner gates. And now, with Sage body and Gen Dun's transformation, it should be no problem to open the 3rd gate. Even, you can open the 4th gate, and after the 4th gate is opened, you will be blessed with the ability to shock. And the 8 inner gates has a total of 8 gates. If the 8 gates are fully opened, add the power of shock. Thinking of this, Yi Ming's eyes became brighter and brighter, as if he saw the scene of him with the 8 gate fully open, using the ability of shock, smashing Susanoo with one punch, and kicking Otsutsuki Kagaya. Yi Ming, who was in the excitement, suddenly turned gloomy again. He held his hands and muttered to himself, "Do it all over, do I just want that moment of youth?" Yi Ming felt unwilling to think that the 8 gates were fully open and there was only one dead end. Instant youth is not what I want is the eternal splendor. Who said that when the 8 gates are fully opened, they must die? Who said that the 8 inner gates cannot be modified? Besides, I own the system. Yi Ming's eyes brightened again. And, Yi Ming said, his consciousness turned to the system, I'm on the hook now. If the Sage body is improved, and I'm now full of chakra attributes. At that time, develop wood style, even, get wood style bloodline limit from the system. At that time, wooden golem plus Jundun or wooden golem plus Jundun plus 8 inner gates. Or, come to the top to transform into a Buddha with a shock escape. Thinking of wood style wooden golem jutsu, plus the ability of shock fruit, and then thinking of true several thousand hands the top of the Buddha plus shock escape, the scene of destruction, Yi Ming's body trembled with excitement. And at this moment, the voice of the system resounded in his mind again. Ding! Release the World Loot Mission. World Plunder Mission. Unify the ninja world and become the master of this world. Task Reward. Unknown. Ding! Post a side quest. Plundering the world side quest. In the ninja world, occupy or build a force of your own. Task Reward. Issued according to the completion of the task. Boom 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 boom. Tsunade, who was wearing a black battle suit, looked at Hanzo standing on the head of the Sanshoyu and clenched his silver teeth. Immediately afterwards, he jumped high. Ah, death to me! Tsunade, who jumped high, raised her fist, and saw a mass of chakra appearing on her fist, and immediately slammed it towards Hanzo. Tsunade, be careful. Jiraiya was shocked when she saw this. The hands quickly nodded. And watching Tsunade raised his fist and slammed at him, Hanzo made a seal with one hand. Tsunade, who was punching Hanzo, saw Hanzo look so calm, his pupils shrank, and his heart was suddenly shocked, and a sense of crisis emerged spontaneously. However, before she could make another move, she saw a detonating talisman engraved with runes appearing out of nowhere. These detonating talismans seemed to have vitality and were wrapped towards her. Ninja. Detonate talisman flame array. Hanzo, who was wearing a respirator, looked at Tsunade who was about to be wrapped in the explosion, and said coldly. Oops. Tsunade in midair looked at the detonating talisman spread over his body and exclaimed. When Jiraiya saw this, she was also shocked. Then, she put her hands together and said, Ninja, Needle Jizo. Whizzing. The white hair on Jiraiya's end seemed to have life, and it flew towards Tsunade in midair. The white-haired hare quickly grabbed Tsunade's arm, and then yanked her out of the detonating talisman. Then, the white-haired hare quickly wrapped Tsunade's whole body. Boom 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 boom. It was at this moment that Hanzo's detonating talisman erupted with bursts of light, followed by loud explosions, causing bursts of gunpowder smoke. Ninja, hidden shadow snake hand. In the smoke of gunpowder, a snake with the thickness of an arm suddenly appeared on the left and right of Hanzo, attacking Hanzo. Immediately afterwards, these snakes were like ropes, tying Hanzo firmly. Nice job, Orochimaru. When Jiraiya, who had just rescued Tsunade, saw this, he was instantly overjoyed, and then he folded his hands again. Ninja, thousands of hair needles. Whizzing. Jiraiya's hair quickly turned into a thorn like a hedgehog's thorns, and then, like a machine gun, these hairs shot at Hanzo, who was bound by Orochimaru's snake. In the face of the shoots, the white hair like kunai, Hanzo's expression remained unchanged, and he said lightly, Shui Shunshi technique. Whoosh. Moment. Hanzo and the Sancho fish under his feet disappeared instantly. Fire-style hot fire bullets. Sanjiao Yu and Hanzo appeared in the sky above the three of them. Immediately after, they saw that Hanzo had finished printing with both hands, put one hand to his lips, took a sharp breath, and spit at the three people below. Boom! A giant great fireball with a diameter of more than 10 meters formed in an instant, and then smashed it towards the three Tsunade. Boom! The giant great fireball exploded at the position of Tsunade's three people, and a huge explosion sounded suddenly. The rain in the sky, in contact with the flame, was immediately evaporated, and in an instant, the entire battlefield was filled with smoke. A long time. Whoosh. When the flames dissipated, Jiraiya was half kneeling and gasping for breath. Tsunade and Orochimaru were not much better, staggering barely able to stand up. And on the body of the three people, Jiraiya's white hair that was burnt black was still draped. It is clear. The reason why the three were able to catch fire under Hanzo's fire style was all because of Jiraiya's needle Jizo technique. Is this the strength of a demigod in the ninja world? Looking at the Sanshoyu that fell in front of them, and Hanzo who was still standing calmly on the Sanshoyu's head, Tsunade muttered weakly to himself. Since the start of the war, the three of them have worked together to fight against Hanzo. First, they used the summoning beast to contain the Sanjiao fish, and the three of them cooperated to fight against Hanzo. Originally, she thought that the reason why Hanzo had the name of a demigod was because of the poison of Sanjiao fish. But I didn't expect that without the help of Sanjiao, Hanzo's strength would not be affected at all. Whether it is his knife skills, fire style, and that body flicker technique, they can only be exhausted. She could even feel that Hanzo didn't use all his strength to fight them. And in this case, since they didn't have the upper hand, can only say, is it really worthy of being a demigod? Could it be that we can only stop here? Tsunade, who had already reached the bottom of chakra, looked at the tragic situation around the battlefield, suddenly remembered the request of the little pepper, and smiled bitterly. Kushina. It's not Tsunade. Big sister doesn't take care of that kid, but I can't take care of myself. Looking at the battlefield full of corpses and thinking of the tragic situation just now, Tsunade didn't think that the kid could still survive, and he could only say sorry to the little pepper in his heart. Tsunade, you are very nice. Standing on top of Sanshoyu, Hanzo looked down at the three Tsunade and spoke. At your age, you have such strength. Say it. Hanzo glanced at the battlefield indifferently, and said slowly, this war, I am afraid that you Konoha won. So, thank me, I can let you go. We don't need your mercy, we can still fight. Jiraiya, who was barely standing up with Tsunade's support, looked at Hanzo and roared. Jiraiya, stop talking. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya and said. Orochimaru on the side did not speak. A pair of snake eyes stared at Hanzo, gritted his teeth, and clenched his fists with both hands. Facing Jiraiya's roar, Hanzo remained unmoved, and continued condescendingly. You guys are very strong and young, if you give you a little time to grow up, it's not impossible to defeat me, so become stronger and challenge me again. Report your names as the price for your survival. When the three Tsunade heard Hanzo's words, their hearts were full of anger. However, the three of them are not pedantic people, and they all understand the truth of leaving Qingshan without fear of running out of firewood. Although they are angry, they still stare at Hanzo Dao. Jiraiya, Tsunade, Orochimaru. Hearing the three people's answers, Hanzo nodded, and then said slowly again, I will keep your names in my heart, Jiraiya, Tsunade, Orochimaru. I, Hanzo, in the name of the demigod of the ninja world, give you Sannin Konoha. Looking at the three Tsunade who looked at him with angry eyes, Hanzo took the form of a superior, and was like a subordinate, and killed the three of them to Konoha Sannin. And the purpose of his doing this is actually to see that in this war, their country of rain lost. Not that he couldn't beat the Tsunade trio. Rather, their country of rain can no longer afford to fight a war. And the three of them are Konoha Hokage's disciples, and they have such talent. If they kill them, Konoha will never give up like this. But if he released the three of them hastily, it would appear that Hanzo was afraid of Konoha. So, just come here, the three of them have such strength at such a young age. If the three of them become famous in the ninja world in the future, he will follow suit, right? Originally, according to the original plot, the battle between Sannin and Hanzo would end like this. But I don't know if it's because of Yi Ming, this little butterfly. Originally, the Tsunade three who should have swallowed their breath. After listening to Hanzo's words, Tsunade, who had just regained some chakra and physical strength, changed his expression abruptly, then, gritted his teeth, raised his fist and rushed towards Hanzo. What are you kidding me? I'm the princess of the Senju clan, the granddaughter of the god of ninja world. I need your canonization. Death to me. Hanzo, who was about to close his hands, saw Tsunade rush up with murderous intent in his eyes. Although he no longer wanted to fight, nor did he want to kill three people, there were some counterattacks taking into account Konoha. However, he was willing to let them go. Since Tsunade is still not satisfied, do you really think he is a demigod of the ninja world? Very good. Since you don't want to live for you, then. Sandpepper fish. Ah. Hanzo took out his sickle again, and looked at Tsunade who was rushing up and gave a cold command to the Sancho fish under his feet. And the Sanjiao fish under his feet, as if he had received an order, let out a strange cry and then suddenly opened his mouth. Wow! A dark purple poisonous mist shot towards Tsunade, who was rushing towards him, and Orochimaru and Jiraiya, who were chasing after him. Tsunade! Tsunade! When Orochimaru and Jiraiya saw the poisonous mist from the Sancho fish, their expressions suddenly changed. The pace quickened a bit. Seeing this, Tsunade gritted his teeth, then raised his fist and slammed into the ground beneath his feet. Boom! With Tsunade's punch, a boulder slammed out of the ground and protruded, just in front of her. Hula! At this time, Orochimaru and Jiraiya also came to Tsunade's side. Just when the two came to Tsunade's side, the poisonous mist sprayed by the Sancho fish also came. ZZ. The rich purple poisonous mist seems to be sulfuric acid. The boulder that was resisting in front of the three began to slowly melt away under the purple poisonous mist. Tsunade, you're too impulsive. Jiraiya looked at Tsunade reproachfully. Jiraiya, what did you say? Tsunade glared at Jiraiya when he heard the words, although she regretted it now and shouldn't be so impulsive. She could completely ignore Hanzo's words and ignore them. But she is Senju Hashirama's granddaughter. Does she need some bullshit demigod canonization? As for what Konoha Sannin was conferred by Hanzo. Ha ha, for her, it was not an honor, but a shame. Jiraiya, stop talking. Orochimaru on the side saw that Jiraiya was still speaking, and hurriedly stopped him. Then, he said with a solemn expression, the question we should consider now is how to face Hanzo's attack. When Tsunade and Jiraiya heard the words, they fell silent. Their current situation is very bad. Until now, both chakra and physical strength have bottomed out. Want to continue to resist Hanzo's attack head-on, easier said than done. After the three were silent for a few seconds, Tsunade suddenly said to Jiraiya and Orochimaru, Orochimaru, Jiraiya, you all go first. I'll hold Hanzo back. What are you kidding? Tsunade, how could we abandon you and run away on our own? Jiraiya exclaimed immediately upon hearing this. Orochimaru didn't speak, but the expression on his face was the same as Jiraiya's. He would never abandon Tsunade and run away with Jiraiya. You. Tsunade looked at her two companions, a little annoyed, and a little moved in her heart, and was about to speak harshly, and when the two left, the situation on the battlefield changed again. Master Tsunade, Master Jiraiya, Master Orochimaru, here we come. Wind style, great breakthrough. Wind style, wind pressure. Wind style, Big blow. On the battlefield, there were suddenly hundreds of ninjas with ragged clothes and wounds, with Konoha forehead protectors on their heads. These ninjas were the remnants of the Konoha shinobi who had just accepted Tsunade's order to evacuate the battlefield. After these ninjas appeared, they began to release wind-style ninjutsu one by one, blowing the poisonous mist sprayed by the Sansho fish back in the opposite direction. "Didn't I tell you to retreat? Why are you back? Get out now." Tsunade and Jiraiya Orochimaru, seeing the hundreds of Konoha remnants returning, not only did not have a hint of joy on their faces, but their expressions suddenly changed. Tsunade even scolded the Konoha shinobi. "Lord Tsunade, we are back to rescue you." "That's right, Tsunade-sama, the ninjas of the Land of Rain have all been defeated by us, let's deal with Hanzo together." "Yes, now that we have so many people, together with the three adults, we can definitely deal with Hanzo." After hearing Tsunade's words, the remnants of Konoha opened their mouths one by one. And the three Tsunade's lungs exploded when they heard the words of these Konoha shinobi. "Just relying on you remnants of defeated soldiers, you dare to say that you will join hands with them to deal with Hanzo? Isn't this riding a horse looking for death? If Hanzo is so easy to deal with, can he still be called a demigod?" The three of them all know that Hanzo did not kill them in the battle with them. And Hanzo looked at the Konoha shinobi who went back and forth, and thought that he planned to let the three Tsunade leave, and Tsunade also attacked him. There was a flash of coldness in his eyes, and he said coldly to the Tsunade three and Konoha's remnant army, "Very good, since you are all back, then leave them all." "Say it." His hands began to seal quickly. When he finished printing, the entire battlefield began to be filled with a faint purple mist. "Not good. Quickly use wind style to disperse these mists." Tsunade saw the purple mist that filled the battlefield, his expression changed again, and then he shouted at the Konoha shinobi. However, what responded to Tsunade was a scream of agony. Ah, 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 ah. Each of Konoha's ninjas covered their throats, screamed in pain, and foamed from their mouths. Among these ninjas, there are also some ninjas with good strength. They have prepared in advance and started to seal quickly. They want to use wind style to disperse these poisonous mists. But, boom, the Sanshoyu that was originally in front of the Tsunade three suddenly turned into a cloud of white mist and disappeared in place. Immediately, a huge tongue shot out from the ground of the Konoha shinobi, and immediately, it was a roll. Immediately, 4 or 5 Konoha shinobi practitioners who were making a seal were rolled up by their tongues, screaming and being sucked into the mouth of the Sanshoyu that emerged from the ground. Asshole! Tsunade saw this. His eyes were completely split. He raised his fist, and rushed towards the Sanjiao fish. "Tsunade, be careful." Just when Tsunade rushed towards Sanshoyu, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Tsunade. Tsunade only saw a head of white hair, and then, he heard a crisp sound, and then he saw the figure in front of him fly out. In front of her, Hanzo appeared with a respirator and just put down the sickle. "Today, you all have to stay here." Hanzo looked at Tsunade and said coldly. Behind Hanzo, his Sanshoyu is wanton slaughtering Konoha's ninjas. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya who had just been knocked out by Hanzo, and then looked at Konoha shinobi who was being slaughtered by Sansho fish behind Hanzo. He couldn't hold back his anger any longer, and raised his fist and slammed into Hanzo. Boom! Hanzo raised the scythe in his hand to resist Tsunade's punch, and then, with a twist of his wrist, the scythe in his hand turned and slashed towards Tsunade. Hidden Shadow Snake Hand. Several arm-thick snakes wrapped around Hanzo's hand holding the scythe, preventing Hanzo from slashing at Tsunade's scythe. Painful feat. Seeing this, Tsunade kicked Hanzo. Boom! And just when Tsunade and Hanzo fought fiercely again. The other side. The Sansho fish faced the ninja of Konoha, and the Konoha shinobi was either shot to death or swallowed in his mouth. Or was poisoned by Sansho fish, poisoned to death. In just a short time, there were only a dozen or so of the hundreds of Konoha's ninjas. It's over, it's over. A Konoha ninja, looking at the Sanshoyu who suddenly appeared in front of him, sat on the ground with a look of horror on his face. Ah! Sanjiao looked at the little bug sitting on the ground in front of him, opened his huge mouth and wanted to swallow it directly. Ah! The Konoha shinobi screamed in fear, closed his eyes, and raised his hand to block in front of him. Boom! However, The imagined pain did not come. Instead, the Konoha shinobi felt the ground under him shake, and then he heard a loud noise in his ears. After opening his eyes suspiciously, he opened his mouth wide. I saw the originally menacing Sanjiao fish. At this time, its huge body was lying on the ground ruthlessly. What's going on here? The Konoha shinobi who escaped from the dead looked at the Sanshou fish lying on the ground in confusion. And when he raised his head and looked at the head of Sanjiao, his eyes suddenly widened, full of disbelief. Because, on the top of Sanjiao's head, he saw a person. Oh no, he should have seen a child. Yes, that's right, just a child. This child is in ragged clothes, and his body is still covered with blood. Although he looks very young and beautiful with all the dirt on his body, he looks like he is only 12 or 13 years old at most. Strange, Tsunade and the others are still fighting with Hanzo. Besides, looking at Hanzo's situation, it is obvious that they are going to kill Tsunade and the others. This plot is wrong. Strange, how come Tsunade and the others are still fighting with Hanzo? Besides, looking at Hanzo's situation, it is obvious that they are going to kill Tsunade and the others. This plot is not right. Yi Ming, who was standing on the head of the Sanshou fish, looked at the three Tsunade who were fighting with Hanzo, and his face was full of future colors. In particular, seeing Hanzo's murderous expression, his doubts intensified. According to the original plot, Hanzo would not kill the Tsunade three at all because of various considerations. But now, what's the situation? And the mountain pepper fish was suppressed, and immediately, everyone's eyes were turned to Yi Ming's side. Even Sanin and Hanzo, who were fighting, stopped fighting and looked at the boy who suddenly appeared on the head of Sanjiao. Boom! At this moment, the Sanjiao fish under Yi Ming's feet turned into a cloud of white smoke, disappeared in place, and returned to the summoning world. Clap clap clap. Under everyone's attention, Yi Ming walked towards Tsunade step by step, with a smile on his tender face, looked at Tsunade who had stopped and confronted Hanzo, and looked at him suspiciously. Sister Tsunade, it's already said that it's too big, it's easy to lose balance and affect the battle, so don't eat those things, it's not good. You are Yi Ming. Looking at Yi Ming coming towards him, Tsunade felt a little familiar, but he didn't recognize it. But when I heard Yi Ming's voice, I took a closer look, I recognized it, and when I thought about Yi Ming's words again, I suddenly became infuriated. Kid, what are you talking about? Do I need something to eat? I'm born, do you understand secondary growth? Tsunade glared at Yi Ming, quite sturdy, wrapped in battle tights. The firm part of the slap made Jiraiya, who was beaten and pretended to be dead, gulped. After Tsunade scolded Yi Ming, he regained his senses. Then, he walked quickly to Yi Ming, guarded him behind him, looked at Hanzo, and said to Yi Ming, "Little devil, run away, this is not the place you should be. Go." Although Yi Ming's appearance just now was a bit awesome, Tsunade didn't think Yi Ming could participate in such a battle. Yi Ming is close to Kushina. Kushina is a member of the Uzumaki family, and is the next Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, so after Kushina came to Konoha, he stayed at her house. Because of this, she knew no more about Yi Ming, who had no ninjutsu talent in illusion, only taijutsu and 8 inner gates. In her opinion, Yi Ming was able to suppress the pepper fish, it must be that Yi Ming used 8 inner gates. However, no matter how powerful 8 inner gates' short-term explosive power is, it is impossible to fight against Hanzo, who is known as a demigod. After all, Yi Ming is only 10 years old. And Yi Ming looked at Tsunade who was standing in front of him, and a warm current flowed in his heart. Then, he took a few steps forward, stood side by side with Tsunade, looked at Hanzo and said slowly, "Is this guy Hanzo? It's really ugly." Quote, "What are you doing, little brat? Go." Tsunade glared at Yi Ming and took Yi Ming behind him again. Enla. Yi Ming waved his hand and said with a smile on his face, "Sister Tsunade, I am very strong now." However, Tsunade ignored Yi Ming at all. His beautiful eyes looked at Hanzo again, and then, at Orochimaru not far away, and a ruin. Orochimaru, Jiraiya, hey. Stupid Jiraiya, why are you pretending to be dead? When? Ha ha. As Tsunade's voice just fell, the ruins exploded, and Jiraiya, who was full of dirt, came to Tsunade's video with a big laugh. "Isn't this while I have time to restore chakra?" After saying that, Jiraiya turned to look at Yi Ming behind Tsunade. "Yo. You stinky brat aren't dead yet. Yi Ming rolled his eyes at Jiraiya, then curled his lips and said, don't worry, I will outlive some lecherous old man. When Jiraiya heard this, her brows jumped, and she wanted to have a good discussion with Yi Ming about who is more lecherous and who gave him advice on the subject of his novel. At this time, Orochimaru, who had been silent and indifferent, interrupted Jiraiya's words. Okay, Jiraiya, now is not the time to say this, save your strength. It will be another hard fight, and, quote. After Orochimaru finished speaking, he looked closely at Hanzo with a calm expression. This time, maybe it will. Die. When Tsunade and Jiraiya heard the words, they all restrained their minds and looked at Hanzo solemnly. Judging from the few fights just now, Hanzo really didn't keep his hands on them anymore. If you don't take it lightly, I'm afraid it will really be like what Orochimaru said, it may really. Die. Hanzo, who had never spoken, glanced at Yi Ming behind Tsunade, frowning slightly. He had a faint sense of danger in that kid who looked like he was only 10 years old. This is his intuition after years of fighting, and subconsciously makes him feel that this kid is not simple. However, when he saw Yi Ming's immature face, he let go of his guard against Yi Ming. After all, Yi Ming's little face of 12 or 3 dolls at this time was too deceptive. Hanzo's gaze moved to the Tsunade trio again, and he made up his mind. He wiped a little blood from the wound on his body with his finger, and immediately began to seal the seal. When Tsunade Orochimaru Jiraiya saw this, he immediately knew what Hanzo wanted to do. At the same time, he bit his thumb and started to seal quickly. Then, almost at the same time, the 4 of them slammed on the ground. Summoning technique +4. Bang 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 bang. Immediately, 4 huge groups of white smoke rose up. Immediately afterwards, 4 behemoths appeared on the battlefield. Hey, Jiraiya, I just bandaged the wound, why did you summoning me out again? The donkey of the production team can't be ordered like this, and why are you still fighting this salamander? On a Toad's arm, the Toad boss Wenta, who was wrapped in white bandages, complained to Jiraiya on his head with a dissatisfied face. Safe. When Jiraiya on Wentai's head heard the words, he was also a little embarrassed. Boss Toad, I'm so sorry. However, I can't help it, the battle is over, I'll invite you to drink, liquor manager enough. Well, this can be, Wentai nodded. On the other side, there is also a 10,000 snake whose wound has not healed, and roared loudly, Orochimaru, I said, within a month, don't call me out again, have you ignored my words? Believe it or not, I swallow you now. 500 offerings, Orochimaru said indifferently when he heard the roar of the 10,000 snakes. No, I want 1,000. One, she said dissatisfied. Okay, Kaido, that Orochimaru doesn't even think about. Compared to Orochimaru and Jiraiya, Tsunade's summoning beast is too much to merge. Master Tsunade, I didn't expect to meet again so soon. A soft and weak female voice was uploaded from Katsuyu. Yeah, Katsuyu, I'm really bothering you, Tsunade also replied politely. It's okay, Tsunade-sama, Katsuyu Kaido. And Yi Ming stood on Katsuyu's head, looking at Sanin's summoning beast curiously, and was also a little excited. After all, this was the first time he really saw Sanin's summoning beast. Okay, it's time to go. Tsunade waved his hand and said loudly, Katsuyu. Understood, Tsunade-sama. Hearing this, Katsuyu tilted his head slightly, and then, a stream of yellow corrosive liquid sprayed toward the Sancho fish. Katsuyu's corrosive liquid, like a high-pressure water gun, was sprayed at the Sanchoyu. At the same time, Jiraiya's Toad Bunta, and Orochimaru's 10,000 snakes, attacked at the same time. Toad Wentai raised the giant knife in his hand, jumped up violently, and slashed at the Sanjiao fish head-on. 10,000 snakes swung their snake bodies, and the entire huge snake body burrowed into the ground. For a time, the top, middle and bottom of Sanjiao were blocked by Sanin's summoning beast. Wow, in the face of Wanshi, Katsuyu, and Wentai's blockade attempt, it just made a strange cry, and then, it violently escaped into the ground, and then, boom, accompanied by a violent sound, there was a mournful scream from the ground, and then, like a cat chased by a dog, Wanshi rushed out of the ground directly from the ground, and just hit Wentai, knife under. Idiot. In midair, Wentai, who was slashing with a knife, watched one snake slam into its knife. Although, it really wants to cut off this sloppy snake and use its snake skin to make a wallet, but now is not the time for infighting. After scolding one snake, he quickly changed the original top-down knife to a translation. However, in this way, although the knife did not hit the snake, the huge body of Tai Wen smashed it firmly on the snake. This is not over yet. Wen Tai just pressed on Wan Shi, and the yellow liquid sprayed by Katsuyu also came. Seeing that Katsuyu's yellow liquid was about to be sprayed on his body, Wen Tai was quick-witted, lifted the snake under him, and swung it in front of it. "Ah, toads, slugs, lousy is going to kill you." 10,000 snakes screamed, and Katsuyu's yellow liquid was sprayed to the place, and smoke came out, and it was accompanied by a strong meat fragrance. Hearing the voice of one snake, Toadman shrugged his shoulders too much, and then said lightly, "Who called you?" Suddenly came out of the ground, "Who told you to run under me?" "Toad, do you want to die?" "I want to come out." "It's that salamander in the ground, full of poison, can't I come out and wait to die?" The skin, sloughing off the body, growled. Wen Tai shrugged again, calmly, and said with some contempt, "You are too embarrassed to say that you are a lion, Majesty, but you can't make a fish. I am embarrassed to say you. The two of you should stop arguing. Sanjiao is about to come out," Katsuyu said at this time, seeing that Wen Tai and Wan Shi were about to fight. When Wan Shi, Wen Tai, and Katsuyu teamed up to deal with the Sanshoyu, Tsunade faced Hanzo again. Strange power, Tongtian foot. Ninja, Needle Jizo. Ninja, hidden shadow snake hand. In the face of Sanin's attack, Hanzo responded calmly. First, a fire style, which burned Jiraiya's white hair to ashes, followed by a wind style, which chopped all the snakes summoned by Orochimaru into pieces. Then, a body flicker technique, so easy to escape Tsunade's kick. In an instant, the attacks of the three people were all cracked. Yi Ming looked at Sanin's cooperation, but he couldn't hurt Hanzo. He frowned. Tsunade and the others have not reached their peak, and after fighting for so long, they are already at the end of the battle, and Hanzo is known as a demigod. Although this the water of the demigods, there are some seas, but the strength should not be underestimated. Although the ninja world is a demigod, in Yi Ming's opinion, this title is gone. However, Hanzo, who has this title, should not be underestimated. Although he cannot be compared with the god of the ninja world, he is also in existence standing at the top of the ninja world. According to Yi Ming's strength evaluation and comparison, Senju Hashirama and Ban are classified as super cage level, while Hanzo and the poison of Sanjiao fish exist at the peak of cage level, even higher than the peak of cage level. Be stronger. And Sanin is only in his early 20s now, his strength is far from reaching the peak, and he has been fighting Hanzo for so long, it is a matter of time before he loses. The reason why Yi Ming didn't act immediately was because he was observing Hanzo's strength. After all, even if he opened the third gate of the 8 inner gates, plus Gen Dun, his overall strength was similar to the current Sanin, perhaps a little stronger than the 3. Of course, Yi Ming at this time can also open the 4th gate, Yi Ming who opened the 4th gate, plus a real cage-level powerhouse who is properly shaken. However, with his current physique, the side effects of opening 4th gate are still too great. In the face of Hanzo, who was standing on the bright side at this moment, the pinnacle of the ninja world, Yi Ming didn't have the confidence to kill Hanzo in an instant without knowing the situation. So, after Sanin fought Hanzo again, he carefully observed Hanzo's fighting rhythm. Not good. Yi Ming, who was carefully analyzing the rhythm of Hanzo's battle, let out an exclamation. Immediately afterwards, a burst of gas emerged from his whole body, and he disappeared in place in an instant. Ninja, detonating flame array. Hanzo, who was in close contact with Tsunade, suddenly stepped back for a distance, and then, he slammed the ground with one hand. Whoa, whoa, whoa. The wet ground suddenly turned into sheets, and the papers floated up. Immediately, these papers turned into detonating talismans, surrounding Tsunade in all directions. Tsunade, Tsunade. In the distance, Orochimaru and Jiraiya saw the overwhelming detonation talismans and surrounded Tsunade. Suddenly, their faces turned pale, and they all exclaimed. They want to go to the rescue, but until now, they are unable to save them anymore. Moreover, the time has run out. And Tsunade, who was in the center of the detonation array, looked at the detonation talismans surrounded in all directions. It's over, Tsunade thought to himself, and his whole body felt cold. However, the moment the detonating talisman exploded, the moment Tsunade had closed his eyes and waited to die. Tsunade only felt as if she was being carried and flew up, and before she could react, a loud noise was heard in her ears. Boom! The shock wave formed by the explosion raged in all directions, and the rain was shaken away under the shock wave. Tsunade, looking at the power of the explosion, Jiraiya slumped on the ground helplessly, her eyes full of sadness. Orochimaru was also staring blankly at this time, and his eyes were full of confusion at the center of the explosion. Hey, lustful toad, who are you mourning for? Just when Jiraiya was full of sadness, slumped on the ground, staring at the center of the explosion, in a daze, a tender voice came from behind the two of them. Orochimaru and Jiraiya froze for a moment, then turned around. Immediately afterwards, they saw that Yiming was holding Tsunade in the posture of the princess. Seeing the two of them look over, Yiming looked at his arms with some dissatisfaction, and stared blankly at his Tsunade. Hey! You are too heavy, you should stop taking the medicine, those 2 lumps of are taken up. Are you a third of the weight? Tsunade was in a trance. When he heard Yiming's words, his veins suddenly burst, and he jumped out of Yiming's arms, facing Yiming with a head scratcher, shouting, Kid, I told you, this is innate, do you understand innate? Cut, what a fool. I heard Jiraiya say, you used to be 2 nails in an airport, you were born. Who are you lying to? Yiming covered his head and pouted. Fly, what is an airport? Ah, hey, you stinky brat, don't frame anyone, when did I say that? Tsunade, listen to my sophistry. Jiraiya, die for me. Okay, now it's my turn to play. Looking at the exhausted Tsunade 3, Yiming slowly walked towards Hanzo. Yiming. Tsunade saw this and wanted to stop it again. At this time, Orochimaru grabbed Tsunade and said, Tsunade, let Yiming go. Orochimaru, Yiming is just a child, how could he be Hanzo's opponent? Tsunade glared at Orochimaru in dissatisfaction. Orochimaru shook his head, looked at Yiming's back, his eyes showed a hint of interest, and said hoarsely, Tsunade, Yiming-kun, it's not easy. Big, Orochimaru-sama, Tsunade-sama, Jiraiya-sama. At this time, the dozen or so surviving Konoha shinobi came to the back of the Tsunade 3, supporting each other. Orochimaru glanced back, and the dozen or so Konoha shinobi practitioners immediately turned their eyes to Yiming's direction again. Seeing this, Tsunade didn't say much. After nodding, he walked towards the Konoha shinobi and detoxified them. After all, these guys just faced Sanjiao fish. Although before the war started, she had already prepared an antidote for Sanjiao fish poisoning, and she also let these people take the antidote in advance. However, the poison of Sanjiao fish is too violent. Faced directly with the poison of Sanjiao fish, the weaker ones can die instantly. And now these dozen guys are still alive, which is enough to prove the strength of these guys. The other side, Hanzo stood on the top of the Sanjiao again, looking down at Yiming who was walking slowly. As for Wentai and Wan Snake Katsuyu, the 3 big ninja beasts have long been beaten back to the summoning world by Sanjiao. It's not that the 3 big ninja beasts are too weak, and none of the 3 big ones can't beat the mountain pepper fish. However, the poison of Sanjiao fish is too difficult to deal with. Coupled with the special environment of the land of rain, the increase in Sanjiao fish is too great. Little devil, you are not easy. Konoha is really the cradle of genius. Hanzo, who was standing on the head of Sanjiao, looked at Yiming who looked up at him, and couldn't help sighing. From Sanin just now to Yiming, who seems to be only 12 or 13 years old, all of them prove Konoha's heritage and power. At first, Hanzo didn't care about Yiming either. However, when Yiming rescued Tsunade just now, the burst of chakra and speed were not what he should have at his age. Therefore, Yiming at this moment is already worthy of Hanzo's attention. Isn't it simple? Yiming smiled lightly. Should I be very happy to be praised by the demigods of the ninja world? Hanzo stared at Yiming for a moment, as if thinking about something. Originally, Tsunade's rude behavior, he had already killed the 3 Tsunade. However, the appearance of Yiming now made him hesitate again. After all, after killing the Tsunade 3, Konoha may not immediately start a war against the Land of Rain due to the situation in other battlefields. However, coupled with Yiming's words, Hanzo is not sure whether Konoha will retaliate regardless. After all, he didn't know that Yi Ming in the past was just the tale of a crane who could only practice physique in Konoha. In Hanzo's view, Yi Ming is so young, with such strength, he must be a genius that Konoha has cultivated. Kill Sannin, and then kill Konoha's super genius, Konoha will never die, right? After thinking about it for a while, Hanzo glanced in the direction of the Tsunade and the three of them, and then looked at Yi Ming and said lightly, Konoha Sannin, and you, Konoha's Nova, let's go. Ha! Yi Ming was stunned for a moment when he heard the words, and then he laughed, ha. I said, are you addicted to the nickname? Konoha Sannin, Konoha Nova. Ha. Hanzo, otherwise, you won't be called a demigod of the ninja world in the future. After all, your name as a demigod is too watery, so just change the nickname of the ninja world to the king. When Hanzo heard the words, the anger that had been suppressed was instantly stirred up by Yi Ming. He was provoked again. This is the second time. Taking into account Konoha's crazy revenge, he has made concessions twice. However, it was rejected both times. Is he shameless? Little devil, you are playing with fire. Hanzo narrowed his eyes and looked at Yi Ming, a strong murderous aura pressed towards Yi Ming. Facing Hanzo's oppression, Yi Ming stood up straight, his body was tense, and he looked at Hanzo with sharp eyes, as if he was about to launch an attack. Hey, Tsunade, this stinky brat, how come you are so irritable? Jiraiya covered her head, looked at Yi Ming's expression, and said speechlessly. At this time, Tsunade, who had already helped the dozen or so Konoha shinobi detoxifiers, glanced at Jiraiya without speaking, and looked at Yi Ming with a solemn expression. Coming. Are you going to seal it? Orochimaru watched Yi Ming start waving his hands, and immediately became more energetic. Not only did Tsunade watch Yi Ming nervously, but the dozen or so Konoha shinobi were also watching Yi Ming nervously. Although Yi Ming only looked like a teenager, he looked like a child. However, their lives were all saved by Yi Ming. Coupled with the strength Yi Ming showed when he rescued Tsunade, they no longer regarded Yi Ming as a child. Watching Yi Ming's hands move, the dozen or so Konoha shinobi practitioners were nervous and expectant. But they're Konoha's super genius. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Ming stared at Hanzo, his right hand clenched his fist, facing Hanzo, his left hand resting on his right arm. Quote ? Looking at Yi Ming's actions, everyone, including Hanzo, was full of question marks. What seal is this? Is there such a mark in the ninja world? Just when Hanzo was confused, he saw Yi Ming aimed at his fist and stretched out a finger, and then, this finger hooked at him. You, come here. Quiet. Everyone looked at Yi Ming blankly. Hanzo stayed on the spot. On the other hand, Yi Ming pointed at Hanzo and hooked his finger again. You, come here. Provocative. Kai Guguo's provocation. Gudong. Jiraiya in the distance swallowed his saliva, then looked at Tsunade and said, Tsunade, let's recover quickly, I'm afraid that this kid will be killed later. Tsunade, Orochimaru, and the remaining Konoha shinobi all nodded in agreement. And after Hanzo came back to his senses, he was furious, and he didn't say much nonsense, and stepped on the mountain pepper fish lightly. Sandpepper fish. Frog. Sanjiao Yu and Hanzo had a heart-to-heart connection, and when he heard Hanzo's words, he responded, and then his cheek swelled, and he sprayed a strong purple poisonous gas towards Yi Ming. Looking at the poison gas sprayed at him, Yi Ming crossed his hands in front of him, and then, a stream of blue chakra began to overflow from his body. The first gate of 8 inner gates, open it, open it. Second gate, Hue gate, open. The third gate, the gate of life, open. The third gate, the gate of life, open. Boom. A turbulent blue chakra burst out from Yi Ming's body, and in an instant, the 8 inner gates' third gate fully opened. And because of obtaining sage body and shock fruit, Yi Ming's physique has been improved by leaps and bounds. Therefore, Yi Ming, who opened third gate, was not like Xiao Li in the original book. When he opened the gate of life, his skin became red. Now Yi Ming's physique can fully bear the physical burden of opening the door to life. This is, looking at the suddenly skyrocketing chakra, except Tsunade, Jiraiya and Orochimaru, and Konoha's ninja, all eyes widened with disbelief. Originally, 8 inner gates, a forbidden technique, was about to come to the third battle, Might was wearing it to save Guy, opening the 8 inner gates to fight the ninja sword and 7 people before entering the eyes of Konoha executives. The book 8 Inner Gates was written by Might Day. So, they naturally don't know 8 Inner Gates, such a physical art. 8 Inner Gates technique. And Tsunade, who had a good relationship with Yi Ming, saw this scene, but said slowly with a solemn expression, "Stinky brat, if it's just 8 Inner Gates technique, it can't deal with Hanzo." She knew about the side effects of 8 Inner Gates. If, judging by Yi Ming's age, it would be impossible for 8 Inner Gates to deal with Hanzo alone. Interesting. Is it the forbidden technique of physique? After Orochimaru regained his senses, he licked his lips and looked at Yi Ming with interest. And the other side, Yi Ming, who opened the door of life, looked at the poisonous fog that was close at hand. He couldn't avoid it, the corner of his mouth rose slightly. Dragon King grinned. Immediately afterwards, he took a horse step and made a fist with his right hand. Duo. In an instant, Yi Ming's fist was covered with a milky white halo. Yi Ming, what are you doing? Why don't you run away? Seeing that the poisonous fog of Sancho fish was about to swallow Yi Ming. And since Yi Ming didn't dodge, Tsunade was in a hurry and wanted to go to the rescue. Everyone was also a little puzzled. Facing the poison of the Sancho fish, why didn't Yi Ming avoid it? It seemed that he wanted to face the poison of the Sancho fish head-on. The forbidden technique of physique. And Hanzo was a little surprised when he looked at Yi Ming, who opened the door to life. After all, the forbidden technique of physique is not common. However, when he saw that Yi Ming wanted to use his fist to deal with the poison of the pepper fish, his eyes returned to indifference again. Can Teishu deal with the poison of Sanjiao fish? Just kidding. However, the next scene made everyone's eyes widen. Only to meet the surging poisonous mist, Yi Ming slammed a punch towards the front. Empty shock. Duo. Crack. Yi Ming's fist slammed into the void in front of him. Immediately afterwards, the void in front of him, like a mirror, was blasted with cracks by him. Moreover, these cracks began to spread like strips of lion majesty. Just under everyone's astonished gaze, an invisible shock force burst out violently. Boom. At the moment when the shock force erupted, there was a loud explosion. The poisonous mist sprayed by the Sanjiao towards Yi Ming, in this shocking force, first paused for a moment, and then, the dense poisonous mist was instantly dissipated. The poisonous mist of purple Sancho fish dissipated into the air under Yi Ming's punch. Quiet. The entire battlefield fell silent. Except for the sound of the rain falling above the sky, it seemed that all the sounds had disappeared. A long time. What kind of power is this? Ju actually knocked out all the poison of the pepper fish with one punch. Is it the Shuiji boundary? But what kind of Shuiji boundary is this? Since it can dispel the poison of the mountain pepper fish. Oh my god. What did I see? Konoha's ninjas widened their eyes in shock when they saw Yi Ming blowing away the poisonous mist. You know, this is the poison of Sanjiao fish. The Sanshoyu is the summoning beast of Hanzo. It can be said that Hanzo can be called a demigod, and the poison of the Sanshoyu has an indelible contribution. But now, the poison of the pepper fish was completely eliminated by Yi Ming's punch. Not only the dozen or so ninjas in Konoha were shocked, but the 3 Tsunade were equally shocked. They have dealt with Sanjiao fish head-on, so they naturally know how powerful the Sanjiao fish is. Especially its poison. In the face of the poison of Sancho fish, Tsunade can only reluctantly make an antidote to resist. But Yi Ming blasted away the poisonous mist with one punch. You fool, you've lived long enough, so. After blowing away the poison of Sanjiao Yu with one punch, the salamander in front of Yi Ming, Sanjiao Yu, and the head of Sanjiao Yu. Hanzo, who was also full of shock, turned his body slightly to one side, his right hand clenched his fist again, and placed it on his left shoulder. Duo. A milky white halo appeared on Yi Ming's fist again. The difference from just now is that this time the milky white halo is even whiter. At the same time, with Yi Ming's dignified shock again, the ground began to shake slightly. Duo. Boom. Crack clap clap. Yi Ming charged up and punched forward again. The power of this punch is obviously more violent than the punch just now. The void in front of him shattered faster than the punch just now, and the range was larger. At the same time, facing Yi Ming's bizarre attack, Hanzo, who was in shock, also recovered. When he saw Yi Ming throwing a punch at him again, his expression suddenly changed, and then, he used an instant body technique in an instant and disappeared on the top of Sanjiao's head. Hanzo ran away, and Sanjiao fish was unlucky. Before the Sanjiao fish could react and escape, it felt a terrifying force that slammed into it. This force acts on it, constantly tearing its body and destroying its internal organs. Frog. The mountain pepper fish let out a mournful cry, and then, in the eyes of everyone, the huge body of the mountain pepper fish was like a balloon. Boom. Sand pepper fish is fried. The body of the mountain pepper fish turned into a mist of blood, drifting around, and then it was washed away by the rain and flowed in all directions on the ground. Tsunade, Orochimaru, Jiraiya, Konoha's ninjas, including Hanzo who dodged using the body flicker technique. Seeing the Sanjiao fish bursting into blood mist, all were dumbfounded. God, I'm not dreaming, am I? Mountain, Sanjiao fish was killed. What kind of power is this? I can't see it, obviously I can't see it, why did the Sanjiao fish die? Genius, Lord Yiming is indeed a genius, but why haven't you heard of Lord Yiming's name before? What kind of Shuiji boundary is this? Is there such a powerful Shuiji boundary in the ninja world? Besides, Lord Yiming is not yet 15 years old, right? He actually killed the mountain pepper fish, my god. Master Tsunade just said that Yiming is only 10 years old, only 10 years old, and he can kill the scallop fish at the age of 10. I can't believe how crazy the ninja world would be if this news spread out. The scene where Yiming smashed the Sanjiao with one punch immediately made the dozen or so Konoha shinobi pilgrims exclaimed and couldn't believe what was happening in front of them. Mountain pepper fish. That's a pepper fish. It was, unexpectedly killed by Yiming with one punch. If this news spreads to the ninja world, no one will know what kind of storm will be set off in the ninja world. Not to mention the dozen or so ninjas in Konoha. At this time, Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru were so shocked that they were speechless when they saw Yiming smashing the Sanjiao fish with one punch. Jiraiya's eyes turned into ping-pong balls, her mouth was wide open, and she looked at Yiming in disbelief. This is still the one talking to him about art and ninjutsu, phantom pulling the hips, can only the tail of the crane who can practice taijutsu. The power of the punch just now, I am afraid, has almost S-rank ninjutsu, right? Moreover, the most important thing is that he doesn't need to seal or prepare. With such a simple punch, he has almost the power of S-rank ninjutsu. Is this step on a horse to be heaven-defying? Tsunade, who had the deepest friendship with Yiming and who knew Yiming the most, was also stunned by Yiming's strength at this time. This little fool, since he is so strong. Tsunade came back to his senses a little, but he still felt unreal to Yiming's punching and killing the Sanjiao fish. Nima, so magical, killing the mountain pepper fish with one punch, it was also a 10-year-old kid. Say it, who will believe it? Haha, sure enough, Lord Yiming didn't let me down. Orochimaru licked his lips again, looking at Yiming's eyes, full of fiery, unknown blood following the limit, one punch way, the Shuiji boundary that almost possesses the power of S-rank ninjutsu. This is really interesting. Sandpepper fish. And Hanzo looked at the scene of the Sanjiao fish being bombarded and killed, but his expression was incomparably indifferent. Of course, the indifferent expression is only superficial. At this time, his heart was full of complexity and sadness. Although Sanjiao is just a summoning beast, he is also a fighting partner and friend who has accompanied him for many years. But now, his partner was directly bombarded and killed in front of him. It is impossible to say that he is not sad. However, this sadness will not show. At his age, he has seen too much death and grief. He understands a truth: sadness is just an expression of cowardice. Only by erasing the source of sadness is the most correct approach. So, fire style hot fire bullet. Wind style, big hair dryer. Compound ninja technique. Super fire bomb technique. Hanzo's hands quickly formed a seal, first releasing a great fireball with a diameter of more than 30 meters, and then, when the fireball whistled towards Yiming. Hanzo's wind-style ninjutsu has completed the seal, and immediately, wind-style ninjutsu will act on the great fireball. Wind boosts fire. The great fireball, which was originally 30 meters long, has more than doubled in size in an instant, and its diameter has reached 60 to 70 meters. The huge fireball, with its scorching high temperature, caused the rainwater that fell from the sky to be evaporated one after another. Almost in an instant, the surrounding area was shrouded in white mist formed by the evaporated water vapor. And Yiming looked at the fireball that looked like a small sun and pressed towards him. He still couldn't avoid it. The blue chakra all over his body started to riot, and then, the horse strode, and the right fist was clenched again. I really don't understand. In such an environment as the country of rain, as the leader of the country of rain, he actually uses fire-style ninjutsu that is unfavorable to the terrain. But, Yiming said this, his eyes widened, no matter what ninjutsu you use, I will break it with one punch. Earthquake. Duo. Crack clap. Yiming's fist slammed out again. Similarly, the familiar scene reappeared, the air was smashed by a punch, and then, a terrifying shock force slammed towards the giant great fireball. Boom! The terrifying power of concussion slammed into the huge fireball, which suddenly distorted the space. However, perhaps this fireball was too terrifying. Under Yiming's punch, this huge fireball was not directly smashed to pieces. It was only blocked by the power of shock. Since it was against the power of shock that Yiming blasted, it competed. Oh, Yiming was a little surprised when he saw this scene, but he was only a little surprised. He saw his left hand clenched tightly, and said lightly, since one punch can't be done, then another punch. Quote. Beep, boom, crack clap clap. Yiming's left fist also slammed out, and the same scene reappeared, the shock force exploded, superimposed on the shock force just blown out by the right hand. Boom! The superposition of the shock force suddenly broke the balance, and the huge fireball exploded in an instant, turning into wisps of flames and dispersing around. Demigods, but, what? Looking at the shattered great fireball, Yiming looked in the direction of Hanzo. However, the next moment, Yiming felt his feet sinking, his whole body seemed to have fallen into a swamp, and he began to sink to the ground. At this time, Hanzo's voice came from Yiming's ears. Immediately afterwards, Yiming felt his feet sink, and his whole body sank even more slowly. Earth style, Yellow Spring Marsh. Instant cut. Immediately afterwards, Hanzo's figure appeared behind Yiming, holding a sickle in his hand, and swept across Yiming's neck. Little devil, your blood is limited, although the attack power is very strong, even a punch can almost reach the power of S-rank ninjutsu, but your attack, the burst speed is too slow. Maybe for ordinary ninjas, or even ordinary cage-level ninjutsu, this speed is nothing at all, but, for me, the speed of such bursts and pauses is enough, already. So, kid, pay for your arrogance. The scythe in Hanzo's hand turned into afterimages, skipping over Yiming's neck. Yiming, Tsunade in the distance, seeing this scene, suddenly let out a scream. Hanzo's sickle slashed across Yiming's neck in an instant. When Tsunade saw this scene, he let out a scream, and the whole person rushed out. Jiraiya, Orochimaru and Konoha's ninjas were a little bit overwhelmed by this sudden change. It was fine just now, why was it suddenly killed? Tsunade, who rushed out after seeing Yiming beheaded by Hanzo, suddenly stopped and stood there, looking at the direction Yiming was. And Hanzo, who had just cut off Yiming's head, frowned at the same time. Because, he clearly felt that there was something wrong with his scythe just scratching Yiming's neck. Not good. It's the body replacement technique, when. Boom. Hanzo reacted instantly, and Yiming in front of him also turned into a piece of wood at this time. Obviously, Yiming had already used the body replacement technique when he attacked just now and left the place. Instant technique. Hanzo was only stunned for a second, and then, a strong sense of crisis came from the top of his head. He didn't hesitate to use the body flicker technique and instantly disappeared in place. At the same time, just as Hanzo left, Yiming's figure descended from the sky and stepped on thunder with one foot. Beep, crack clap clap, boom, Yiming stepped on the air a few centimeters above the ground. Immediately after, the air was crushed by him, and the ground shook for a while, followed by a huge explosion. Immediately, the surrounding ground is constantly sinking. This old guy is so strong in terms of combat experience and awareness, he really deserves the title of a demigod in the ninja world. On the edge of a huge pothole, Yiming looked at Hanzo in front, and couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. He still underestimated Hanzo. Although, Hanzo's Sanjiao Yu was directly killed by him under his surprise. However, Hanzo's fighting experience and fighting consciousness almost killed him. It was only after fighting with him a few times that Hanzo actually found it. Under the shock, even he didn't find any weakness. Shouldn't it be said that he is indeed an old ninja world? Good. As Hanzo said, after obtaining the ability of Shock Fruit, plus the blessing of 8 inner gates, his shock escape does not require a seal at all, or even a lot of chakra. He only needs to charge up, and he can hit a punch with almost S-rank ninjutsu power. However, whether it is the moment of accumulating power or breaking the air with a fist, it may become the enemy's decisive kill against him. Especially for Grandmaster swordsmanship like Hanzo, the powerhouse of body flicker technique. In front of such a strong man, a slight pause is his fatal threat. Yi Ming has reason to believe that the reason why he was able to kill the Sanjiao fish with one punch just now was definitely because Hanzo didn't understand Gen Dun. Otherwise, with Hanzo's combat experience, there would be no chance for him to kill the Sanjiao fish. It's hard to do this now. Yi Ming sighed in his heart. It seems that even if he obtained the ability of Shock Fruit, he can't take it lightly. Of course, this doesn't mean that Shock Fruit's ability weakness is too obvious, and the ability is too rubbish. But he is so rubbish. If he has Whitebeard's physique and strength, such shortcomings are nothing at all. As the saying goes, the power has reached a certain level, and it can be broken with one force. No matter how fast you are or how experienced you are, lousy punches like a nuclear blast, where can you hide? But the current Yi Ming can't do that at all. So, facing Hanzo now, you really have to be careful. If you take it lightly, maybe his head will move in the next second. Beep. On Yi Ming's fist, a milky white halo appeared again. He's going to strike first. In the face of Hanzo, who is known for his speed, he can't let him go with a rhythm. Moreover, now although he can already cope with the burden on the body. But the longer it drags on, the more burden it will put on his body. Boom. Crack. Yi Ming threw a punch in Hanzo's direction again, and then, the force of shock rolled towards Hanzo. Whoosh. However, at the moment when the terrifying shock force erupted, Hanzo's figure flashed and appeared in another direction. Seeing Hanzo easily dodging his blow, Yi Ming's brows were tightly wrinkled together, and then, the power of shock waved again, in the direction that Hanzo had just appeared, and threw a few punches in a row. Boom boom boom. A wave of shock force was blasted out by Yi Ming, and Hanzo's figure kept flashing. Every time it was the shock force, and the moment it was about to hit him, he avoided the scope of the shock force. Sure enough, this kind of power can only go straight. Then, after avoiding Yi Ming's consecutive punches, Hanzo had completely figured out the attack method of the shock force. Be prepared to fight back. After continuous testing, Hanzo found several weaknesses in the power of shock. First, every time you attack, there will be a brief pause. Second, only 2 consecutive bursts can be made, and attacks cannot be burst in succession. Third, although the scope of the attack can be increased, it can only go straight. These weaknesses can be said to be very fatal to the current Yi Ming. Obviously, after the continuous attacks had no effect, Yi Ming also discovered these weaknesses. Seeing Hanzo appearing in a blink of an eye again, Yi Ming didn't attack again, and began to think about how to face such a situation. While Yi Ming stopped attacking, Hanzo was about to start a counterattack. After thoroughly figuring out Yi Ming's ability to shock and escape, Hanzo held the chain scythe in both hands and stared at Yi Ming sharply, like a wolf looking at his prey. When Yi Ming saw this, he became vigilant in his heart. He knew that Hanzo's counterattack was coming. As predicted, Hanzo, who thoroughly understood his ability to shake, suddenly disappeared in place, and at the same time, his voice entered Yi Ming's ears. Instant slash. Seeing this, Yi Ming hurriedly crossed his hands in front of him, and immediately swung his hands to the left and right. Boom. Crack clap. Yi Ming's fists crossed in front of him slammed into his left and right air, and suddenly, the air hit by his fists exploded instantly. Immediately afterwards, the power of shock, centered on him, spread to all directions. And at the same time, Hanzo's figure, like a ghost, kept flashing around Yi Ming at a distance of 1 meter. Whoosh whoosh. Seeing Hanzo constantly flashing around him, Yi Ming felt a chill in his heart. If he were a little slower, he might have been torn apart by Hanzo by now, right? Oops. And at this moment, Yi Ming's expression suddenly changed, because Hanzo suddenly appeared in front of him. And it was less than half a meter away from him. He even saw the sickle in Hanzo's hand, and the cold light on the tip of the knife was flashing. And the most terrible thing is that his shock power has just exploded, and it is in a downward trend. It can be expected that when the power of shock completely disappeared, Yi Ming was split into two halves. Moreover, Yi Ming was using the power of Gen Dan at this time, so he couldn't use the body replacement technique at all, and he couldn't do evasive actions. What a terrifying plan. Sure enough, every strong man in the ninja world can't be underestimated. Looking at the sickle that was getting closer and closer to his head, Yi Ming couldn't help but sigh in his heart. From the very beginning, he was tested by Hanzo, his intelligence, and then he made a plan to kill him. Yes, Hanzo does not have third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen's powerful ninjutsu, Wuhua 8 Gates' powerful ninjutsu, Tsuchikage's 2-day scale Onogi's blood following elimination, Raikage's absolute speed, and Casekage's magnet style. Mizukage, what about me? So, I'm not worthy of acting. However, Hanzo can obtain the title of a demigod in the ninja world of many strong men, and in the land of rain, which is trying to survive in the cracks of the three kingdoms, and this alone can imagine the strength of Hanzo. It is absolutely impossible. Underestimate. Even if Hanzo at this time does not have the assistance of Sanjiao, he still has the most peak strength in cage level. Seeing that Hanzo was constantly approaching against his shock, his sickle was less than 10 centimeters away from Yi Ming's forehead. And Yi Ming, even if the power of shock erupts now, with Hanzo's strength, he has every reason to believe that Hanzo can definitely withstand the power of shock and split him in half. As of now, it can only be like this. Yi Ming felt the cold light on Hanzo's sickle. While gritting his teeth, he kept pumping out the power of shock. He secretly said in his heart, and then suddenly said, "The fourth gate, the wounded door, open it for me." Ong! The chakra in Yi Ming's body was like a river, rushing towards a location. In just a moment, the 4 chakra flames in Yi Ming's body were ignited. At the same time, the chakra around Yi Ming rioted again, his skin became red, the pupils of his eyes disappeared, covered by the whites of his eyes. What? Seeing that Yi Ming was beheaded by him, the sudden change made Hanzo slightly startled. Then, as if feeling a little bit, he withdrew his attack, crossed the sickle in his hands in front of him, and made a defensive stance. And just when Hanzo made his defense, a fist as fast as lightning slammed towards him. Moreover, this fist was covered with a round of milky white halo. Beep, crack clap clap. Yi Ming's fist didn't actually hit Hanzo's sickle, but when it was a few centimeters away from Hanzo's sickle, it directly shattered the air. Immediately afterwards, a terrifying shock force, like a volcanic eruption, crushed Hanzo. Boom! Hey! Under this terrifying shock, Hanzo flew out like a cannonball. Since a long-range attack is useless for you, you can only fight at close range. Surrounded by chakra, the red-skinned Yi Ming looked at Hanzo, who was blasted away by him, and secretly said in his heart, and then, the whole person seemed to move in an instant, and rushed towards Hanzo, who flew out. Now he can't fight Hanzo for a long time. After all, with his current physique, he can't bear the side effects of injury. Call out. Yi Ming, who was surrounded by chakra, instantly caught up with Hanzo, who flew out backwards. All of a sudden, Yi Ming came to the sky above Hanzo, and then, the power of shock gathered under his feet and stepped on Hanzo. And Hanzo, who was flying upside down in midair, once again crossed defenses with scythes in this scene. Beep, crack clap, boom, the power of shock erupted, and below Hanzo, a huge explosion sounded violently, and then, the ground sunk in layers. However, Yi Ming did not give up the attack at this time. After Hanzo was stepped on the ground by him, Yi Ming's fists continued to condense the power of concussion, how they floated to face the ground, punching punch after punch. Boom boom boom, crack clap clap clap. I don't know how many punches Yi Ming threw. The air in front of him is like a huge mirror, with more and more cracks. In just a short time, the place under him seems to be covered with the cracked spider web as average. Accompanying his attack were loud explosions and the constantly shaking earth. Gudong. The Konoha shinobi who were watching the battle from a distance, watching such a violent attack, all swallowed their saliva subconsciously. Such destructive power is simply a natural disaster for them. When Jiraiya saw Yi Ming, who was so violent, she even burst out with the mantra she learned from Yi Ming, and shouted with dance and dance, "It's amazing, my brother Ming, go. Hanzo, go, blow him to death, do it." Noisy. Boom. Facing the dancing Jiraiya, Tsunade regained his senses, followed by a punch, knocking out Jiraiya, and then he looked in Yi Ming's direction again in shock. Has this little fool become so strong? Tsunade looked at Yi Ming in a frenzy and suddenly thought of the scene of being hugged by Yi Ming just now, and his pretty face blushed. Since I was a child, I have never been hugged by anyone except my own family. And Orochimaru on the side, although he didn't say anything, but at this time, his gaze towards Yi Ming became more and more hot. 10 years old, awakening this boundary of blood. Since he is only 10 years old, the former Crane Tail has the power to fight against the demigods of the ninja world, and even suppress the demigods of the ninja world. Orochimaru is really interested in Yi Ming's bloodline limit. Oh my god, Lord Yi Ming, since Lord Yi Ming has suppressed the demigods of the ninja world. I can't believe it, I can't believe it, what is this blood successor limit of Lord Yi Ming? It has such a powerful power. Crazy, what's wrong with this world? Since the demigods of the ninja world have been suppressed by 10-year-old children, my god. Genius, oh no, Lord Yi Ming is a monster. At the age of 10, he has the strength to suppress the demigods of the ninja world. If the news spreads, the ninja world will set off a huge wave again. The Konoha shinobi followers who came back to their senses looked at Yi Ming, who kept throwing punches, and all of them exclaimed in amazement. Ninja demigod. That is a demigod of the ninja world. That is the existence standing at the top of the ninja world. Now he is being suppressed by Yi Ming, who is only 10 years old. After this battle, the ninja world will probably be shaken by this news, right? Ignore the exclamations of everyone in Konoha. At this time, under Yi Ming, as he continued to wave his fists that condensed the power of shock, the bottom had turned into a huge pit with a diameter of tens of meters and I don't know how deep. And Hanzo's figure has long since disappeared. When Yi Ming stopped attacking and stood on the edge of the giant pit to observe, his brows were tightly furrowed together. Win? Did you win? In the distance, Yi Ming stopped attacking, including the 3 Tsunade, all of them looked at Yi Ming attentively. If Hanzo was really killed by Yi Ming, then they can completely predict what kind of waves the ninja world will make. But, was Hanzo just defeated so easily? The answer is obvious. How can Hanzo, known as the demigod of the ninja world, be so easily defeated? When Yi Ming frowned to detect Hanzo's situation, he suddenly disappeared. And at the moment Yi Ming disappeared, a sharp blade slashed through the void and smashed into the place where Yi Ming had just stood. Call out. The razor-sharp blade, with a fierce murderous aura, seemed to want to separate the whole world, and flew out for an unknown distance. Wherever the sword light passed, a bottomless, slender gap was plowed. Hanzo also reappeared in everyone's field of vision. Woo! With blood on his body, Hanzo looked at the young man in front of him with some panting. You, very good, since you have such terrifying strength at such a young age, if you give you another 10 years, I am afraid that no one in the ninja world is yours anymore. Rival. But you must die today. Knife technique. Edge. Before Hanzo finished speaking, the scythe with an iron chain in his hand turned into a circle of light, and flew towards Yi Ming at a speed that was almost invisible to the naked eye. Yi Ming looked at the flying aperture, his eyes narrowed, not only did not dodge, but rushed towards the flying aperture. Beep. Boom. The moment Yi Ming rushed out, he met the flying aperture. However, with Yi Ming's punch, the aperture was sent flying, and Yi Ming had already come to Hanzo's face, and the kick that covered the power of the shock swept towards Hanzo's head. Boom. Hey. With the familiar sound of air shattering, Hanzo's body flew out again. However, Hanzo's body was just kicked away, and suddenly turned into a cloud of white mist, and then, Hanzo turned into a piece of wood. This is a stand-in technique. Whoosh! Hanzo suddenly appeared behind Yi Ming, and the sickle in his hand slashed towards Yi Ming's neck again. Beep! Yi Ming felt the strong wind behind him. Without any pause, he clenched his right fist to gather the power of shock, and lifted it up. Ong! Hanzo's sickle slashed at the milky white halo on Yi Ming's arm, and then Hanzo's sickle stopped abruptly less than 10 centimeters from the milky white halo. Immediately, an invisible wave centered on the two of them spread to the surroundings. The battlefield they had just changed, the ground began to dent again. Humph! Yi Ming snorted coldly, then twisted his body, and swept his foot towards the back with a kick of convulsive power. Boom! The violent shock force erupted again. However, Hanzo's figure disappeared in place. Knife technique, slay the heavens. Hanzo's voice came again, and then, a sharp sword light, with the momentum of severing everything, slashed towards Yi Ming. Earthquake. Facing Hanzo's slashing sword, Yi Ming's red skin began to swell because of the opening of the injury door, and the muscles and veins on his arms did not move. Immediately, Yi Ming twisted his body slightly and took a horse step. On his fist, circles of halo were continuously superimposed. Seeing that the knife was about to approach, he punched him violently, in the air in front of you. Beep, crack, clap, clap, boom. The terrifying power of shock erupted again, cracks appeared in the ground, and began to shake violently, the rain was shaken, and the dark clouds above the sky were also blown away directly by this shock. The sun on the first floor shines through the scattered dark clouds, shining on this country that has been shrouded in rain for many years. This punch is the strongest punch that Yi Ming can break out so far. Under this punch, the earth collapsed, the sky was shattered, and Hanzo's sword glow vanished into nothing at the moment of contact. The location where Hanzo was just now turned into a giant pit, and countless rainwater began to flow into the giant pit. After a while, the giant pit turned into a big lake. Tsunade and the others, who had been away from the battlefield for the first time, looked at the completely changed terrain under Yi Ming's punch, and they all lost their voices for a while. Is this still a power that humans can possess? With one punch, the ground collapsed and the sky shattered. Does such power really belong to human beings? This time I won. At this time, among the ninjas of Konoha, someone stammered out. The scene of the battle just now subverted their ninjas' cognition. Ultimate speed, violent power, and sharp swordsmanship. Either way, they are challenging their nerves. And Yi Ming's full-strength punch gave them a sense of sight in the face of natural disasters. It must be Lord Yi Ming who won. No, that's right, it's definitely the knight. Lord Yi Ming has won. Under such an attack, even a demigod can't survive, right? Oh, we won. Our Konoha ninjas defeated the demigods of the ninja world, we won. Haha, I thought it was dead. Lord Yi Ming is really too strong. Several ninjas in Konoha cheered excitedly after being shocked. Is it finally over? The three Tsunade also smiled at this time, and they didn't think that Hanzo would survive Yi Ming's punch. After all, the power of that punch, they just watched from a distance, and they all felt chills in their hearts, not to mention Hanzo who was within the attack range. So, Hanzo, pawn. However, with a voice, the cheers of the Konoha shinobi stopped. The three Tsunade's smiles froze. Ninja Super Explosive Flame Array. Chapter 11, Ninja Super Exploding Flame Array. With this sound, the cheers of the dozen or so Konoha shinobiers stopped abruptly, and the smiles on the faces of the three Tsunade froze. However, before Tsunade and the others could react, the ground around Yi Ming's place was densely filled with detonating talismans. Immediately afterwards, a dazzling white light suddenly appeared, and Tsunade and the others all subconsciously blocked their eyes with their hands. At this time, the sound between heaven and earth seemed to be pressed by the Shizune key, and all the sounds disappeared. And this was only a brief loss of voice. In this brief moment, a terrifying shock wave sent Tsunade and the others flying, followed by an earth-shattering loud noise. Boom! A mushroom cloud slowly bloomed, and above the sky, the dark cloud that was blown away by Yi Ming's punch was once again blown away by this violent explosion shock wave. Moment of effort. The rain in the whole country of rain stopped. I don't know how many years I haven't enjoyed the sunshine. The country of rain is once again blessed by the sunshine. And I don't know how long it took. The aftermath of the explosion subsided slowly. Cough, cough, cough. Tsunade crawled out of a rubble and slumped on the ground, his hands propped on the muddy ground, coughing violently. After a while, she hurriedly looked at Yi Ming's location, and then she was stunned. The current environment has completely changed. At this time, Tsunade seemed to be no longer in the land of rain, but in the land of water surrounded by the sea. Because she saw the sea. That's right, she actually saw the sea. What appeared in front of Tsunade was a cloudy sea, level with no edge in sight. Yi Ming. After being stunned for a moment, Tsunade looked at the sea with red eyes and shouted. However, there is no movement. There was only the sound of water flowing toward the sea in front of him. Clap, clap, clap. Looking at the big sea in front of him, Tsunade's tears fell on the ground tick by tick, and the water on the ground slowly flowed forward. Tsunade. Jiraiya and Orochimaru dragged their tired and severely injured bodies to Tsunade's side. Jiraiya looked at Tsunade, who was crying, and wanted to comfort him, but he didn't know how. Orochimaru silently looked at the big sea in front of him. After a long time, he muttered to himself in a low voice, "Life is so fragile." Another moment passed. The surviving Konoha shinobi people also gathered around the three Tsunade. Did they die together? All the Konoha shinobi followers, looking at the scene in front of them, thought silently in their hearts. However, it was at this moment that the calm big sea in front of him suddenly made a loud noise. Boom! Accompanied by this loud noise, the water flow that had just gathered was directly pushed by this explosion, and was pushed horizontally in all directions. At the center of the explosion, an island slowly rose. Yi Ming. Hearing the loud explosion, Tsunade suddenly raised his head, and then he saw a small island slowly rising, and on the small island, a small figure was half kneeling. Needless to say, it was Yi Ming. Back in time before the explosion. When Yi Ming blasted with all his strength, his current strongest blow, he suddenly heard Hanzo's voice. Immediately afterwards, the ground under his feet turned into paper, and then a crack split open where he was standing. And Yi Ming, who had just released his strength, fell directly. When Yi Ming fell out of the crack and saw the surrounding situation clearly, he couldn't help but scold his mother. "Hanzo, the dog are, how many detonating charms did you use to ride the horse?" 600 billion. The Rain Shinobi village now doesn't have that big head of Kakuzu. Did you hollow out the whole Rain country? An underground exchange. Kakuzu sneezed, then rubbed his nose and sighed, "I'm old. I'm still cold." Closer to home, looking at the situation around him, Yi Ming couldn't help but scolded his mother. He saw that the surroundings were densely packed, layer upon layer, full of detonating talismans. With so many detonating symbols, Yi Ming estimates that there are 300 billion instead of 600 billion. That scene is almost the same as the scene where Conan misappropriated Kakuzu's hard-earned pension, saved money, and bought a detonating talisman to blow up Runto. "My name is Obito, it's Obito." Thinking of Conan, Yi Ming suddenly remembered that in the original book, Conan's three little devils were peeping nearby, right? In the future, Conan fried Runto. "Obito, it's Obito." Wouldn't it be inspired by seeing this scene? It's going to be tough now. I didn't expect that after fighting with Sannin for so long, and losing Hanzo, who was assisted by Sanjiao, since he is still so strong, isn't he really a powerhouse with the name of a demigod? Looking at the detonating talisman around him, it had already started to burn, and the detonation was only an instant event. Yi Ming's expression became extremely ugly. At the time of life and death, Yi Ming gritted his teeth. "Cross your hands over your head. 8 inner gates, 5th gate. Dumen, open." Boom. Dumen in Yi Ming's body was instantly forcibly rushed away by the violent chakra. The moment Dumen rushed away, a layer of green gas ignited on Yi Ming's body, and the surrounding chakra, more like a flame, rose into the sky. Earthquake. Yi Ming, who forcibly opened Dumen, once again gathered the power of shock, and then, he crossed his fists in front of him and slammed it left and right. Boom. Crack clap. The power of shock, with Yi Ming as the center, began to go in all directions. And at the same time, the dense detonation talismans around them were also detonated. The moment of explosion, Yi Ming only felt dazzling around him for a while, and then, a heat wave that seemed to be able to burn together, swept towards him. However, the scorching heat wave was completely isolated from the outside by the shocking force that Yi Ming erupted. Boom. Almost instantly, an earth-shattering explosion sounded beside Yi Ming's ear. After the explosion, Yi Ming landed on the ground, and immediately, he saw countless currents flooding towards him. Yi Ming endured the side effects of 8 inner gates, his right hand turned into a claw, and he grabbed it in the air. Then, the ground under his feet was squeezed by the shock and slowly rose. In a moment, Yi Ming was half kneeling on the small island, surrounded by the sea on all sides. And the 8 inner gates that he had opened had been closed, but there were still wisps of green energy on his body. Hoo. Yi Ming put his hands on the ground, gasping for breath, and there was a tear-like pain from his body. His skin even cracked, and a stream of blood came out of him. This is a side effect of 8 inner gates, and the bodily damage from the shock-reversing power. Finished. Yi Ming looked at the surrounding scene. Even though his body was extremely uncomfortable, a smile appeared on his face. Hanzo perished with him. While he was still alive, this battle, he won. Clap. Yi Ming's smile suddenly solidified, and his eyes were full of disbelief as he looked ahead. What an amazing kid. In such an explosion, you can still survive. Kid, tell me your name, and I will keep it in my heart. Looking at the small figure that came to him step by step, the smile on Yi Ming's face froze. Because the person in front of me is Hanzo. Since he's not dead. At this time, Hanzo was also full of embarrassment, and the respirator on his face was gone. The clothes on his body were tattered, and there were even large and small scars on his body that could be seen deep in the bones, covered with blood and scorched skin. Step by step, Hanzo walked towards Yi Ming, holding the broken side in his hand. Looking at the frozen smile on Yi Ming's face, he slowly opened his mouth and said, "What an amazing kid. In such an explosion, still alive. Kid, tell me your name, and I'll keep it in my heart." Hearing Hanzo's words, Yi Ming's surprise and disbelief disappeared. Instead, he sat on the ground indifferently, with a smile on his face again, and said slowly, "Yi Ming. Kimura Yi Ming." Yes, Yi Ming in this life shares the same surname as Takuya Kimura, who fascinated thousands of beautiful girls in the previous life. As Kimura Yi Ming. Hanzo nodded, and then, looking at Yi Ming's life and death look, he asked curiously, "Are you not afraid of death?" Yi Ming endured the 8 inner gates and the side effects caused by the anti-shock power, and still had a faint smile on his face. Kaido, afraid? Who is not afraid of death? After answering Hanzo, Yi Ming glanced at Hanzo's puzzled expression, and then said again, "You want to ask, since I'm afraid of death, why am I so indifferent?" Hanzo didn't speak or nod, just looked at Yi Ming. Yi Ming lowered his head slightly and seemed to be talking to himself. "You know what? Not long ago, I was the tail of a crane in a Konoha village. Chakra was difficult to extract, and chakra was scarce. Ninjutsu, illusion, pulling the hips, only the tail of the crane to practice body arts. A crane tail that only knows physical skills, a crane tail that is only 10 years old, placed on such a battlefield, even if it is dead, not too many people will remember that there is such a person, right?" Speaking of this, Yi Ming raised his head slightly, looked directly into Hanzo's eyes, and smiled again. "And it is such a crane tail, he almost defeated the demigod of the ninja world. You say, even if it is dead, what else is there to regret?" After saying these words to Hanzo, Yi Ming sighed slightly. "The only regret is that I can't see that girl again." At this time, Yi Ming was already determined to die. With his current body, due to Duman who forcibly opened the 8 inner gates, he is now a little bit useless when speaking, let alone fighting Hanzo again. As for why there is still a system, Yi Ming didn't ask for help. Yi Ming asked just now, but the system simply ignored him. It seems that this system only has cold procedures and no wisdom at all. All his questions are ignored, and he can only check his personal attributes. Therefore, in the face of this situation, Yi Ming no longer thinks that he can still survive under Hanzo's hands. But even now dead, Yi Ming didn't have too many regrets. At least, he's been here for so long. He has also been useless for so long, and now he can fight with the demigods of the ninja world to this extent. He is not smearing the identity of the transmigrator, is it? And after Hanzo heard Yi Ming's words, the whole person was shocked beyond words. What did he hear? This kid who almost killed him, this kid who, in his opinion, is definitely an important target of Konoha's training, since not long ago he was still the tail of a crane who could only rely on physique training. Hanzo's whole body is bad. He was almost killed by this Konoha's crane tail. Shouldn't it be said, Konoha is too awesome. A crane tail nearly killed him. This ride. Hanzo is a little messy. However, he recovered immediately, and his heart moved slightly, thinking of Yi Ming's shock fruit ability. On the battlefield, did you accidentally awaken that powerful bloodline boundary? Perhaps, only this explanation can make sense. Why did the tail of Konoha's crane have such a powerful force? After Hanzo figured it out, he slowly came to Yi Ming, looked down at Yi Ming who was slumped on the ground, raised his hand and cut off a scythe. Any last words? If not, then you can go on your way. Yi Ming glanced at Hanzo, lowered his head, and slowly closed his eyes. Seeing this, Hanzo immediately had a strong murderous look in his eyes. Little devil, you can die. Say it. The sickle raised by Hanzo slashed directly at Yi Ming. Feeling the strong wind above his head, Yi Ming closed his eyes and sighed in his heart, are you still going to die? This life is so short. Kushina, this time I really have to say goodbye. I don't know if I can travel back after I die, maybe. Impossible. Quote. Yi Ming recalled his short life now, and felt that death was slowly approaching. However, that feeling of pain did not come, which made Yi Ming wonder, could it be that there is no pain before death? Yi Ming was very puzzled. He opened his eyes again, and then, he was stunned. Because what catches the eye is a back. This one is wearing a light green vest of Konoha, and his body is very tall and straight. He has a bunch of white hair. At this moment, this figure suddenly appeared, holding a short sword in the front and back, just holding the scythe that Hanzo slashed. You are? Hanzo looked at the white-haired man who suddenly appeared, holding his scythe. His eyes narrowed slightly, and the whole person stepped back a distance before saying, Muyi Baya, Hatake Tsukumo. What? Hatake Tsukumo? Yi Ming, who was slumped behind the white-haired man, almost jumped up excitedly when he heard Hanzo's words. It's not how much he admires Hatake Tsukumo, but if it's Hatake Tsukumo, he doesn't have to die. Hatake Tsukumo, the White Fang of Konoha, the father of Hatake Kakashi. When Konoha Sannin did not rise, it can be said that the entire World War II was almost supported by Hatake Tsukumo. As for our mouth strong Lord Third Hokage, what was he doing during World War II? Naturally, it is in the office of Konoha village, and it is okay to watch the girl take a bath. Sarutobi Hiruzen. Framed, this red fruit framed, I am clearly in Konoha to prevent other shinobi villages from attacking. On the contrary, in the entire World War II battlefield, whoever is the brightest is the one in front of him. Even the three Tsunade at this time are not as good as Muyi Baya at this time. It's a pity that it is such a powerful existence, and then, ah. I will cry if I continue. Looking at the white hair on the man's head in front of him, Yi Ming calmed down. This is definitely a wooden Yi Baya, that's right. That hairstyle is almost exactly the same as the later Hatake's 55-50, this is definitely a 55-50 father. And Hatake Tsukumo saw Hanzo retreat, and the white fang in his hand turned and returned to the scabbard, but his hand was always on the hilt. Oh, I didn't expect a demigod of the ninja world. Since I've heard my name, shouldn't I be honored? Hatake Tsukumo looked at Hanzo with a wary expression and Kaido with no expression on his face. Obviously, even if it is a demigod of the ninja world, Sanjiao. Well, there is no Sanjiao now, only Hanzo. He is also extremely jealous of Hatake Tsukumo. Of course, apart from Hatake Tsukumo's name, what makes him so jealous now is that his strength in successive battles has been lost. The title of Muyi Baya deserves attention. Although I know that if Hatake Tsukumo does it, he will not survive at all, but who is he? Ninja demigod. Even if he knew that he might be killed by Hatake Tsukumo, he couldn't act too cowardly, right? Hatake Tsukumo looked at Hanzo without speaking, as if he was thinking about something. At this time, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and several ninjas brought by Hatake Tsukumo also came here. Yi Ming. Seeing Yi Ming who was slumped on the ground, Tsunade hurriedly came to him and nervously checked Yi Ming's body. Ha. Yi Ming, who had no worries about his life, looked at Tsunade, who was full of nervousness, and showed a happy smile. Sister Tsunade, I'm fine. It's all right. The meridians are blocked and there are so many broken meridians. It's all right. Do you want your body to collapse and die? While Tsunade healed Yi Ming's injury, he gave Yi Ming a glance. Ha. Yi Ming smiled awkwardly and did not refute Tsunade's words. Just as Tsunade said, he forcibly opened Duman, coupled with the power of the anti-shock, causing his meridians to be unable to withstand the rush of the violent chakra, and many of the meridians were directly ruptured by the power of the anti-shock, or even collapsed. Break. But it's not as serious as what Tsunade said. His current body, although only a basic sage body, has incomparable resilience compared to ordinary people. As long as he recovers some chakra, he can recover slowly. Good boy, you did a good job. Since you have such a strong strength, you almost killed the demigod of the ninja world. I didn't see it before. Jiraiya squatted beside Yi Ming carelessly, clapped her hand on Yi Ming's shoulder and said. But this shot of Jiraiya made Yi Ming grin in pain, looking at Jiraiya angrily and said, Toad, you touch me again. When I return to Konoha, I will tell all the female compatriots in Konoha village, you often peeping at the hot spring tube. Hey, I said, don't frame me, when did I stop peeping? If you say that again, I'll sue you for defamation. However, Tsunade ignored him at all and treated Yi Ming with a serious look. Jiraiya looked at Yi Ming with some envy, he also wanted Tsunade to care about him so much. And Yi Ming felt Jiraiya's envious gaze and raised his eyebrows at him. Inadvertently, I saw Orochimaru staring straight at him with that fiery gaze. Yi Ming's chrysanthemum was tight, and he said in his heart, this guy Orochimaru won't cut him to study, right? At this time, Hanzo looked at Hatake Tsukumo, who was silent, panicked in his heart, but his face was still very calm. Seeing Hatake Tsukumo, fighting but not fighting or speaking, Hanzo was flustered at this time, and said indifferently, Rain Shinobi Village, quit this war. Having said that, Hanzo looked straight at Hatake Tsukumo, waiting for Hatake Tsukumo's answer. When they heard Hanzo speak, Jiraiya, Yi Ming and the others also closed their mouths, waiting for Hatake Tsukumo's answer. Under everyone's attention, Hatake Tsukumo, who had been silent for a long time, looked at Hanzo and nodded slowly, yes. Hanzo heard the words, his surface was calm, and his heart was even more calm. After taking a deep look at Hatake Tsukumo, he finally looked at Yi Ming, who was slumped on the ground, and said very pretend, little devil, you have great potential, in another 10 years, I will be named as a demigod in the ninja world. I'm afraid it will fall into your hands. After Hanzo finished speaking, with a bang, it turned into a cloud of white mist and disappeared. I rely on. Do you want to pretend like this? But Yi Ming scolded when he heard Hanzo's words, expressing dissatisfaction with the pretend words Hanzo put before leaving. What, are you still dissatisfied with the demigod of the ninja world 10 years later? Jiraiya looked at Yi Ming with some envy. Look, there is a beautiful Tsunade to help soothe, and Hanzo said that the demigod of the ninja world will be 10 years later, called. This ride as a winner in life. You know, that's what the demigod of the ninja world said. It won't be long before the ninja world will know that Yi Ming has the appearance of a demigod in the ninja world. He's so envious, isn't he? I'm satisfied with a hammer. Yi Ming stared at Jiraiya angrily. I just woke up to the blood religious limit, and I haven't practiced and developed it yet. I almost slapped him. Do I need 10 years? Give me another 10 years. 5 years, 5 years at the most, I can punch his poo. Although Yi Ming's words are a little suspicious of blowing B, Yi Ming is really confident that within a few years, he will definitely have the strength to kill Hanzo. Cut. Brag B, you don't need to give money, who wouldn't? Jiraiya pouted, not believing Yi Ming's bragging. But Orochimaru and Tsunade, as well as Hatake Tsukumo, who turned around and looked at Yi Ming, pondered. They're not as carefree as Jiraiya. With the strength Yi Ming showed just now, perhaps in a few years, Hanzo might not really be Yi Ming's opponent. After all, Yi Ming was only 10 years old at this time. Their strength has not reached their peak at all. Tsunade, Orochimaru, and Hatake Tsukumo can no longer imagine how strong Yi Ming is after reaching the peak. It's been a while. After Tsunade stabilized Yi Ming's injury, he directly carried Yi Ming and followed Hatake Tsukumo to their temporary camp. Looking at Yi Ming lying behind Tsunade, he naturally made Jiraiya envious again. After an hour, everyone returned to the country of Rain, the temporary camp of Konoha. This camp is the Tsunade trio to deal with, the frontline temporary camp of Rain Shinobi Village. But at this time, the camp was a bit empty. This war had taken away too many lives, and the originally open camp had become somewhat lifeless. One after another, the corpses were concentrated and burned together, and the entire camp was filled with the breath of death. Inside the camp headquarters, Senior Hatake, aren't you on the Tsunagaku battlefield? How did you appear here? Could it be that something happened on the battlefield over there? Tsunade looked at Hitaki Tsukumo, who had just sat down, and asked worriedly. At this time, the Second Ninja World War has entered a white-hot stage. Konoha is now surrounded by a group of enemies. Except for the Kingdom of Water, which has not participated in the war for the time being, the Kingdom of Wind, Kingdom of Earth, Kingdom of Thunder, and 3 of the 4 major countries, all of them have declared war on Konoha. In addition, Konoha was a 1-4 match for the Rain country, which had just withdrawn from the war. In the face of a multifaceted battlefield, even if it is as powerful as Konoha, it is a bit stretched at this time. Hearing Tsunade's question, Hitaki Tsukumo nodded lightly, looked at Tsunade, Orochimaru, Jiraiya, Yi-Ming, who had recovered slightly, and the few remaining elite Jonin, and said slowly, "Not long ago, I received the battle situation from your side, and now Tsunagaker and Iwagakure have temporarily stopped the attack, so I came to support. However, I can't stay here for too long, take a rest, and I'll rush back." Quote. Hitaki Tsukumo's words were very indifferent, as if nothing could change his expression. The Tsunade trio frowned upon hearing Hitaki Tsukumo's words. Sand Shinobi, Rock Shinobi temporarily stopped the attack. What is this premeditated? Tsukumo-senpai, did Sand Shinobi and Rock Shinobi have any plans? Otherwise, why did they suspend the attack? Jiraiya asked anxiously. This is so weird. You know, Konoha is dealing with the siege of several countries, and the troops on each battlefield are pitiful. It can be said that at the beginning of World War II, Konoha fell into a disadvantage. The other countries, however, are making great strides, and suddenly suspending their attacks. This is not right. Yi-Ming, who was also sitting in the big tent, heard the conversation of several people, but did not interrupt, although the strength he showed made him qualified to participate in such a meeting. But that doesn't mean that he has the right to speak now, so Yi-Ming just listened obediently and silently recovered his body. And speaking of this, I have to praise Tsunade's medical ninjutsu skill. Forcibly opening the 8 inner gates Duman, coupled with the force of the shock, caused many of his meridians to be broken and blocked. After being treated by Tsunade, many of the meridians have recovered. Coupled with his junior sage body, I believe it will not take long for him to be alive again. Hitaki Tsukumo, who was sitting in the first place, heard Jiraiya's question, and then saw Tsunade and others frowning, and said slowly, "I cut off Sand Shinobi's advisor Chiyo's son and daughter-in-law." After hearing Hitaki Tsukumo's words, everyone closed their mouths, and all looked at Hitaki Tsukumo blankly. Even the little transparent Yi-Ming was a little stunned when he heard Hitaki Tsukumo say that he had cut off Chiyo's son and daughter-in-law. Yi-Ming was stunned. That was when he remembered that Chiyo's son and daughter-in-law were the parents of the Akatsuki organization, the Scorpion of Chisha in the future, weren't they? Has it been cut by Hitaki Tsukumo now? While Tsunade and the others were in a daze, they were completely in shock. That's Tsunagaker's advisor, Chiyo's son and daughter-in-law. Not to mention the relationship of Chiyo, the strength of this couple and their status in Tsunagaker is enough for many people to look up to. However, now he was actually cut by Hitaki Tsukumo. How can this not shock everyone? No wonder Sand Shinobi and Rock Shinobi temporarily stopped their attacks. The killing of this particular couple was undoubtedly a huge morale blow to Tsunagaker. Therefore, temporarily retreating is the most correct choice for Sand Shinobi now. And why did Rock Shinobi also temporarily stop attacking? Those present don't have to think too much. It must be the old fox who weighed the big Yemu in 2 days. He didn't want to face Konoha alone and increase his losses. So, the old fox is now waiting for Sand Shinobi's crazy revenge, so he can get a bargain later. Okay, that's it, I'm going back too, and now I have to beware of Sand Shinobi's counterattack. After everyone present discussed the battle situation again, Hitaki Tsukumo stood up and waved his hand to everyone. Everyone nodded when they heard the words, knowing that it was not good for Hitaki Tsukumo to leave the battlefield over there for too long, so they didn't say anything more. "We'll rest here for a few more days, and we'll go to support you," Tsunade said at this time. Hanzo has already announced his withdrawal from the war, and the rest of the matter is here. They don't need to worry anymore. Konoha will send someone to talk to the country of Rain. And due to the serious shortage of Konoha's troops, Hitaki Tsukumo is facing the attack of the 2 major countries, so it is inevitable for them to support the battlefield there. Yeah, Hatake Tsukumo nodded, did not refuse, came to Yi Ming, looked at the young man in front of him, a smile appeared on Hatake Tsukumo's serious face, and then patted Yi Ming on the shoulder. You are very good. After finishing speaking, Hatake Tsukumo walked out of the camp and took his men to the battlefield of Sand Shinobi Rock Shinobi. After Hatake Tsukumo left, Orochimaru arranged for the remaining Konoha shinobi to rest and go to other battlefields. And Yi Ming was dragged into Tsunade's tent by Tsunade under the jealous gaze of Jiraiya, and continued to recover. 3 days later, Konoha's temporary camp has been completely dismantled, and the remaining Konoha shinobi fighters have gone to other battlefields after resting for a few days. Tsunade, Jiraiya, Orochimaru and Yi Ming stayed for an extra day because the battle was too exhausting. Since the main force had already left, the 4 of them randomly found a cave and temporarily used it as a resting place. The sky started to drizzle lightly again. In a cave in the land of rain, a yellow bonfire illuminated the dark cave. At this time, around the bonfire, standing or sitting surrounded by 3 people, 1 small and 4. Come on, Yi Ming, I'll give you this chicken leg to make up for your body. Tsunade reached out and took the roast chicken roasted on the campfire, tore off a chicken leg, and handed it to Yi Ming. Thank you. Yi Ming was not polite, took the chicken thigh and ate it. Jiraiya on the side, seeing this scene, is completely immune. In the past few days, Yi Ming, this guy can be said to stretch his hands and open his mouth to eat. At first, he was envious, but after watching more, he became immune. Although, I still envy this guy Yi Ming very much, but he won't say anything more. Because, Tsunade's fist, hitting people is too painful. Jun Yi Ming, can you tell us about your bloodline limit? If I remember correctly, you don't seem to belong to the blood step family, do you? Quote. Orochimaru, who was leaning against the rock wall with his arms crossed, suddenly asked. Immediately, both Tsunade and Jiraiya stopped their movements and looked at Yi Ming. Although they stayed together for the past few days, they didn't ask about Yi Ming's situation. At this time, Orochimaru spoke. Tsunade and Jiraiya also looked at Yi Ming curiously. Yi Ming heard this and knew that this kind of question would come sooner or later. He wiped out the chicken legs in his hand, and then looked at the 3 of them and said slowly, yes. I am indeed not a child of the Shueiji family, but I am also I don't know what happened, but when I was seriously injured and dying that day, I suddenly awakened this kind of power. Speaking of this, Yi Ming paused and continued, as for my ability to follow the boundary of blood. Yi Ming wiped his chin and seemed to be thinking about how to explain it. In simple terms, it can activate the power of shock. You have seen the specific power, so I won't say more. The power of shock. Orochimaru licked his lips, and then stared at Yi Ming with some fiery eyes and said, this is the first time I have heard of this kind of blood succession limit. Lord Yi Ming, do you want to follow me? Let me study your bloodline limit together. Yi Ming heard the words, the chrysanthemum was tight, and he quickly shook his head. I don't want to be a guinea pig. But, after Yi Ming said, he looked at Tsunade with a smile, if Sister Tsunade is interested, I don't mind having Sister Tsunade check her body. Little devil, are you looking for death? Tsunade couldn't help blushing when Yi Ming saw it, then he glared at Yi Ming angrily, clenched his fist and said viciously. Really, that's a shame. Orochimaru was a little disappointed. Little devil, what are your plans now? Are you going to Hatake Senpai with us, or go back to Konoha to rest for a while? Jiraiya asked at this time. Hearing this, Yi Ming fell into contemplation. To be honest, he doesn't really want to participate in any battles anymore. After the battle with Hanzo, he discovered many of his own shortcomings. In addition, he has just acquired the ability of Shock Fruit. Although he has Whitebeard as a reference to develop the ability of Shock Fruit, he does not have the pervert physique of Whitebeard after all, so he plans to keep quiet for a while to develop his own fighting style. Those little mice, have you heard enough for so long? While Yi Ming was thinking about it, Orochimaru looked into the depths of the cave and said lightly. Yi Ming, Tsunade, and Jiraiya all looked into the depths of the cave without any surprise on their faces. Obviously, they have long known that there are others in the cave. In the depths of the cave, in the darkness where the fire was constantly shining, the 3 short figures hiding behind the rocks all trembled when they heard Orochimaru's words. Aren't you coming out yet? Orochimaru's pair of bewitching snake eyes looked into the depths of the cave and squinted slightly. Immediately, the three short figures in the depths of the cave suddenly felt as cold as an ice cave. Orochimaru still didn't come out when he saw the three of them, and the killing intent in his eyes became more intense. And the three short figures seemed to sense Orochimaru's killing intent, and knew that if they didn't go out, the man would probably shoot. So, the three people trembled from the darkness, walked out slowly. Oh, is it a war orphan? When Jiraiya saw the three who came out, she opened her mouth somewhat unexpectedly. And Yiming looked at the three little ghosts in front of him, and he was a little stunned. It seems that his arrival did not affect the plot of the original book. These three little devils, one had a boy with long red hair and bangs covering his eyes, the other looked a little scared, but stopped in front of him, a boy with yellow hair, and the last one was a boy with blue hair who looked like a delicate girl. All three children are about 10 years old, and at first glance they are orphans of war. And these three little devils are none other than Yahiko, Nagato, and Konan. This, here is, our home, we've been here for a long time. Stared at by Yiming and the others, especially Orochimaru, who had a fierce look, Yahiko's body kept shaking, but he still stopped in front of Nagato and Konan, and said with a trembling voice. Interesting. Orochimaru smiled evilly, and with a handful of kunai appeared in his hand, licked his lips, and he slowly walked towards the three of Yahiko. Yahiko, Nagato, and Konan were even more scared when they saw Orochimaru like this. Especially Nagato, after seeing Orochimaru's Konoha forehead protector, he lowered his head, clenched his fists tightly with both hands, and his eyes under his bangs exuded a strange light. Are you going to kill us? You robbers, it was you who destroyed our home, made us lose our family, lost our home, you are the devil, the devil. Looking at the approaching Orochimaru, Yahiko roared at Orochimaru without knowing where the courage came from. Orochimaru, who was walking towards the three of Yahiko, heard the words, and it was even more fierce. He is not a good man and a woman, especially a hostile existence to him. When Jiraiya heard Yahiko's words, a trace of unbearable flashed in her eyes. Then, after hesitating for a while, she came to Orochimaru's side, put her hand on Orochimaru's shoulder and said, "Forget it. Orochimaru, they are also in this war, victims." Orochimaru glanced at Jiraiya and said in a hoarse voice, "Because they are the victims of the war, I want to exclude them. Jiraiya, you will not forget that we are also participants in this war, right?" Jiraiya heard the words and fell silent. And Orochimaru looked at the three of Yahiko again. In such a troubled world, killing them is not necessarily a bad thing for them. Jiraiya remained silent, but the hand on Orochimaru's shoulder did not let go. He knew what Orochimaru said was right, but Orochimaru looked at Jiraiya and said nothing, as if waiting for Jiraiya's decision. The three of Yahiko looked at Jiraiya nervously. They all understood that their life and death were all on Jiraiya. Everyone's life has the right to decide for himself, right? Orochimaru. At this time, Yiming spoke up. Everyone's life has the right to decide for himself, doesn't it? Orochimaru. Orochimaru, who was waiting for Jiraiya's decision, heard Yiming's words, his expression changed slightly, and then he withdrew his kunai and looked at Yiming with a sinister smile. It seems that Yiming-kun has a really thorough understanding of life. Good. Come on. Since Yiming has spoken, then forget it. Say it. Orochimaru regained the position just now, leaning against the rock wall with his arms folded. Seeing this scene, both Yahiko and Jiraiya breathed a sigh of relief. Just when the three of Yahiko breathed a sigh of relief, Yiming took the remaining half of the chicken and slowly walked towards the three of Yahiko. Suddenly, the three Yahiko, who had just breathed a sigh of relief, became nervous again. What are you going to do? Yahiko, who was standing in front of Nagato Konan, looked at Yiming who was approaching, and asked with a trembling voice. However, Yiming ignored Yahiko, looked at Konan who was cowering and hid behind Yahiko, smiled, and handed the half chicken in his hand. Come. Here it is. Seeing this scene, whether it was Orochimaru, Jiraiya, or Tsunade, they were all stunned. Immediately afterwards, when they turned their eyes to Konan, who looked delicate, they all showed strange expressions. Good boy, I will say that this boy has no reason, why is he so kind, so this is the idea. Jiraiya showed her original appearance. Thinking of this at a young age must have been taught by Jiraiya. Tsunade clenched his fists and looked at Jiraiya with a slightly unkind look. Jiraiya, who looked like she understood the emperor, suddenly felt a murderous aura coming. She trembled unconsciously, and turned her head to look in the direction of the murderous aura. When she saw Tsunade, who was rubbing her fists and looking at him kindly, Jiraiya swallowed her saliva and waved her hand. Tsunade. Tsunade, this is none of my business. That kid knows better than me. Well, some time ago, he encouraged me to write a novel about that theme. He even helped me think of the name, and it was called, Kissing, Hot Heaven. Really? Tsunade looked at Jiraiya sullenly. When, of course, I can get mad at the fire, Jiraiya reassured. Humph. Tsunade heard the words, and then put down his fist, but still looked in Yiming's direction with a bad expression. Call. When Jiraiya saw this, she was amnesty. Idiot. Seeing Jiraiya's appearance, Orochimaru cursed in a low voice. Conan was stunned when he looked at the half-roast chicken that Yiming handed over. Not only Conan was confused by Yiming's actions. Yahiko and Nagato don't understand. What's going on with Yiming? Does Yiming know them? Yiming saw Conan froze. A smile appeared on his face again. Regardless of Conan's reaction, he directly put the half-roast chicken in Conan's hand. Eat it. Say it. Turn away. Conan stared blankly at the half-roast chicken in his hand, and said subconsciously, thank you. Immediately, thinking of the smile on Yiming's face, his face flushed slightly. Hey, you are too precocious, aren't you? Jiraiya put her arms around Yiming's shoulders. After speaking, Ji Shishi whispered to Yiming, would you like me to take you to CNC? Scene. Yiming rolled his eyes at Jiraiya, and then pouted at Tsunade opposite. Jiraiya was stunned for a moment, and then, an ominous premonition swept over. Jiraiya. Boom. Tsunade roared, and immediately, Jiraiya stuck to the rock wall. After more than an hour, the rain outside rarely stopped. And Yiming and the others should also leave. After all, this is still the hinterland of the Rain Country, although Hanzo has already said that he has proposed a battlefield. But who knows if that guy Hanzo will play any tricks. Besides, rock shinobi and ninjas wreak havoc here. Therefore, several people are also planning to leave. Yahiko, Nagato, and Conan, looking at Yiming who slowly walked out of the cave, looked a little complicated. Especially Conan, looking at Yiming's back, his heart is full of depression. After thinking for a moment, Yahiko gritted his teeth. Nagato, Conan, let's go. After all, Yahiko took the lead in chasing after Yiming. Seeing this, Nagato and Conan quickly followed. Please wait a moment. Yiming and the others who were walking towards the border of the Land of Rain were suddenly stopped by Yahiko. Everyone turned to look at the three Yahiko who were chasing after them. Clap. Yahiko knelt directly in front of Yiming and his forehead on the muddy ground. Please accept us as disciples. Yahiko with his forehead on the ground, said loudly to Yiming and the others. Conan looked at Yahiko kneeling on the ground, his two little hands were tightly clasped together, full of tension, and he looked at Yiming and the others expectantly. They are about the same age as Yiming, but they are not born in Konoha like Yiming. Even if they can't learn ninjutsu, there are people who teach taijutsu. There is no system plug-in like Yiming. At a young age, they have seen the cruelty of war. Moreover, they had seen it with their own eyes not long ago. Sanin and Yiming fought against the demigod Shanjiao. They all knew that Yiming and the three were powerful. Therefore, Conan now sees Yahiko begging Yiming and the three to accept them as disciples, and he is scared and full of expectations. And Nagato, who had been bowing his head slightly, with bangs covering his eyes, heard that Yahiko wanted to worship Yiming as his teacher. He clenched his fists tightly, his fingernails were inserted into the flesh, and a trace of blood flowed out of his hands. He will never forget that night. That night, he and his parents, a family of three, were around the dining table to celebrate his birthday. However, at this moment, several ninjas with forehead protectors broke into his home like demons, and on this night, he had no home, and he became an orphan. And those ninjas who ruined his family were Konoha's ninjas. It can be said that Konoha's ninja is his mortal enemy. But now, does he want to worship his enemy as a teacher? Nagato raised his head slightly, looked at Yiming and the others through the gap in his bangs. His eyes were fixed on the Konoha forehead protector on them. A pair of lavender eyes suddenly flashed a cold light. Please Please accept us as apprentices. Yi Ming and the others looked at Yahiko, who was kneeling on the ground with his forehead on the ground, and did not speak for a while. It's been a while. Jiraiya hesitated for a long time, looked at Yahiko kneeling on the ground, looked at Konan who was full of anticipation, and Nagato who bowed his head and said to Yi Ming, Orochimaru, Tsunade, you guys go first. I'll stay down for a while. Hey, Jiraiya, what are you kidding? As soon as Jiraiya finished speaking, Tsunade glared at Jiraiya and said, you don't know the current situation of the village, do you? Would you rather sacrifice your village for a few idiots you don't know? Quote. Jiraiya was a little speechless at what Tsunade said, and now Konoha's situation, he naturally understands. Sand Shinobi and Rock Shinobi have joined forces. Although Cloud Shinobi has not launched an attack yet, Cloud Shinobi's ninjas have come to the border of the Fire Country, and they will attack at any time to disperse. Mist Shinobi doesn't seem to be doing anything, but once the front line of Konoha is unfavorable, he will definitely follow several other shinobi villages to attack Konoha. No way, the resources of the Country of Fire are really good. Several other Danin villages are eager to carve up this big cake. Jiraiya hesitated again. Yi Ming, on the side, looked at Jiraiya who was hesitant, and sighed in his heart. Sure enough, his arrival changed too much of the plot. If he remembered correctly, in the original plot, when Sannin fought Hanzo, the second ninja war was almost over. That's why, in the original book, Jiraiya had time to teach Yahiko to the three of them. But now, the plot is completely different. World War II is far from over now, and it is even entering the later stage, which is the eve of the Armageddon. Faced with such a situation, Jiraiya probably won't have time to stay. Sure enough, after hesitating for a moment, Jiraiya glanced at the three of Yahiko, then, after sighing, turned around, let's go. Orochimaru. Tsunade saw that Jiraiya still chose the village, and nodded in satisfaction. When the three of Yahiko saw this, Yahiko raised his head, and still knelt on the ground full of loneliness. Konan's eyes were wet, his hands were tightly clasped, he looked at Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Tsunade, and then, with blue eyes full of tears, he looked at Yi Ming. And Nagato, with long wine-red hair, was a little disappointed after hearing Jiraiya's words, and at the same time, he felt relieved. Let's go. Yi Ming. Tsunade patted Yi Ming on the shoulder and didn't pay attention to the three Yahiko three. In her eyes, the three Yahiko three were nothing at all. It was not that she hated them, but that she had seen too many war orphans like Yahiko and the others. Yi Ming glanced at Konan, who was looking at him, and Yahiko, who was full of depression, and finally looked at Nagato, who was inconspicuous, and began to ponder in his heart. The original work has already started to deviate because of his appearance, and Jiraiya did not stay. However, he knew that Nagato was an important pawn of Uchiha Madara, so Nagato would never die. Even, Yi Ming dared to conclude that there is now a pair of eyes watching them, or rather, watching Nagato. If Yi Ming stayed to take them in, he would definitely be targeted by Uchiha Madara. After thinking for a moment, Yi Ming narrowed his eyes slightly, as if he had made a decision, and suddenly said to the three Tsunade who were about to leave, you guys go first. I'll stay for a while. The three Tsunade, who were about to leave, were suddenly stunned, and then they all turned to Yi Ming. And Yahiko, who was originally lost, raised his head abruptly when he heard Yi Ming's words, staring at Yi Ming tightly. Konan also shook hands a little excitedly, and looked at Yi Ming with watery eyes. Nagato was stunned for a moment, and then he raised his head slightly to look at Yi Ming. Hey, Yi Ming, why is it coming to you again? Tsunade was dissatisfied. It was Jiraiya just now, why are you so confused now? After saying that, Tsunade glanced at Konan, and then, a head broke and knocked on Yi Ming's forehead, and then shouted, Kid, are you worthy of Kushina? Obviously, Tsunade thought Yi Ming chose to stay because of Konan's relationship. Haha. Jiraiya laughed heartlessly and gave Yi Ming a thumbs up. Little devil, I have to say, now I start to admire you, go. Pursuit. Perfect love. Boom. Jiraiya flew. It was Tsunade that punched him. Seeing this scene, Orochimaru twitched the corners of his mouth and looked at the three of Yahiko again. Yi Ming rubbed his head and glanced at Konan, whose face was flushed, as well as Yahiko and Nagato, who were bewildered. Then he said helplessly to Tsunade, what are you thinking about? Am I that kind of person? Obviously isn't it good? Also, even if I have any thoughts, my current body won't allow it. Tsunade heard the words, looked Yiming up and down, then glanced at an important position of Yiming, and then nodded. 2. Yiming has black lines all over his forehead. I know. At this time, Jiraiya ran back from nowhere, and shouted while running, nurture, it's cultivation, Yiming kid told me that cultivation is the king. Yiming's face darkened. Tsunade and Orochimaru looked at Yiming with weird expressions. The three of Yahiko also stared at Yiming unnaturally. Facing everyone's gaze, Yiming glared at Jiraiya viciously at first, then looked at Tsunade and said, don't listen to Jiraiya's bullshit, I stayed, not just because of these little fools, but because of me. You need to be familiar with it. You can also see my bloodline limit. Although my bloodline limit is powerful, it has strong destructive power, but its shortcomings are also very obvious. Therefore, I need a little time to get familiar with this force. A little more about my injury. Although you have healed me a little bit, I still have some internal injuries and I plan to recuperate. Quote. Of course, there is another reason Yiming didn't say, that is, he needs to make arrangements early in order to complete the system tasks. After listening to Yiming's words, Tsunade was silent for a moment and looked at each other. Then, Tsunade said to Yiming, if that's the case, then you stay. There are 3 of us on the front line, is enough for now. Yeah, Yiming nodded, looked at Tsunade and instructed, you also have to be careful, if anything happens, please let me know. Konoha, Hokage building, inside Hokage office. The news just came back from the front line. Hitaki Tsukumo beheaded the puppet master and his wife, Akisha Ichimoku and Reiko. Both of them are high-level Tsunagaker, but also powerful puppet masters. The most important thing is that Akisha Ichimoku is Tsunagaker, the son of high-level advisor Chiyo. Now Tsunagaker has temporarily stopped the attack because Akasa Ikaime and his wife were killed, and Sand Shinobi's morale has also been greatly affected, but, with Chiyo's character, the next Sand Shinobi attack will be desperate. Quote. Even Sand Shinobi, under the mad revenge, may have that power. Moreover, under the influence of Chiyo, Tsunagaker is likely to join forces with Iwagakure to launch a general attack on Konoha. Now let's talk about how we will deal with the next battle. At the prime of his life, the so-called Doctor of Ninja World, 3rd Hokage of Shinobi, Sarutobi Hiruzen, looked at the several Konoha elders present, that is, his former companions, Mitokado Homura, Udatane Kaharu and Shimura Danzo said solemnly. After listening to Sarutobi Hiruzen's remarks, all 3 Danzo pondered. The current situation is extremely unfavorable for them Konoha, although Konoha is only facing Sand Shinobi and Rock Shinobi, but Cloud Shinobi's ninja force has been assembled to the border of the Country of Fire. And although Mist Shinobi has not sent troops yet, once something changes on the battlefield, no one can guarantee that Mist Shinobi will still do nothing. So, although Mist Shinobi and Cloud Shinobi have not launched an attack yet, Konoha has already divided his forces to defend against the attacks of the 2 large ninja villages. Coupled with the troops to deal with Sand Shinobi and Rock Shinobi, it can be said that Konoha at this time has not many troops. Hiruzen, if Sand Shinobi really dispatches that force, our front line will be hard to resist. Therefore, to deal with this kind of natural disaster-like power, it is best to face it with the same power. Quote. After a long silence, Udatane Kaharu raised his head, looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen and said with a serious expression. You mean to send Mito-sama to the front? Mitokado Homura asked in disbelief. Yeah, Udatane Kaharu nodded. Faced with that kind of power, I'm afraid only the same power can deal with it. No, Sarutobi Hiruzen shook his head, denying, Mito-sama's body is about to die. I asked you to come over today. In addition to talking with you about the battle situation on the front line, there is also a discussion about the Nine Tails Jinchuriki thing. What, has Mito-sama's body reached this stage? Udatane Kaharu, who had just proposed to let Uzumaki Mito go to battle, was shocked when he heard Sarutobi Hiruzen's words. You know, Uzumaki Mito is not only the wife of first Hokage, but also the Jinchuriki of 9 Tails. As Jinchuriki of 9 Tails, even if he doesn't go to the battlefield, it is a deterrent to all ninja villages. That is to say, as long as 9 Tails Jinchuriki is still in Konoha, the other ninja villages will not dare to use the power of the tailed beast easily. Today, Konoha's nine-tails Jinchuriki is almost dead, and the news spreads, I'm afraid. Yeah. Sarutobi Hiruzen clicked his bong, slowly exhaled a puff of smoke, and said solemnly, yesterday, Mito-sama, let me know and let me prepare for the transfer of nine tails. I'm afraid Mito-sama also knew that he was going to die. There it is. Say it. Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed again. Immediately, looking at the old guys present, he said, the war on Sand Shinobi, let's talk about it first, how to arrange it, let's see what Sand Shinobi is doing, and now let's talk about the new nine tails. Jinchuriki's business. Sarutobi Hiruzen was a little tired, and faced with the aggressiveness of several large ninja villages, he had no good solution for the time being. There is no problem with the new nine tails Jinchuriki candidate, Uzumaki Kushina. She has the powerful vitality of the Uzumaki clan and the sealing technique of the Uzumaki clan, so there will be no problem with sealing nine tails. Shimura Danzo, who had not spoken for a while, spoke up at this time. Yeah. Sarutobi Hiruzen nodded, and then, as if thinking of something, looked at Danzo and asked, the child who is close to Uzumaki Kushina, how is it now? Don't worry, I have placed that kid on the front line of the Land of Rain. With that kid's ability, he won't be able to survive on the battlefield of the Land of Rain, Danzo replied blankly. Oh, is that the kid named Kimura Yiming? Udatane Kaharu asked curiously. That's right, Shimura Danzo nodded, and then said coldly, Uzumaki Kushina experienced the destruction of the country of Vortex, and after coming to Konoha, the closest person was this child, but this child's ninjutsu the talent is extremely poor, and he can only practice physique. Although this child is from Konoha whose roots are sprouting red, and his parents sacrificed for the village, Uzumaki Kushina, as the next nine tails Jinchuriki, is too important to Konoha. Therefore, as Konoha's nine tails Jinchuriki, she must be in the hands of our Konoha, and her partner must be arranged by us. Quote. Danzo, you've already said that. Sarutobi Hiruzen knocked on the table, looked at Danzo and said, that boy Yiming, although he has no talent for ninjutsu, he works very hard. I believe that those who work hard are always there will be rewards, and I also believe that he is now on the battlefield, and he will definitely show his talent. Besides, Tsunade and the other three are on the front line of the Land of Rain. I heard that Yiming has a good relationship with Tsunade, he will be fine. Quote. Humph. Hypocrisy. Shimura Danzo snorted when he heard Sarutobi Hiruzen's words. He didn't believe a single punctuation mark for Sarutobi Hiruzen's words. A 10-year-old child, moreover, is still a brat who can only practice body arts, and went to the front line of the Rain country. Isn't this a death sentence? You know, there is Hanzo, known as the demigod of the ninja world. In that kind of battlefield, what if Tsunade took care of him? And Sarutobi Hiruzen didn't react at all to Danzo's taunts. Because, he didn't think that the child Yiming could still survive the battlefield of the Land of Rain. Okay, I have already arranged the matter of Uzumaki Kushina, you don't need to say more. Sarutobi Hiruzen waved his hand and continued, we report Hokage-sama, the Rain country is urgent. At this moment, an Anbu of Konoha suddenly appeared and half-kneeled in front of Sarutobi Hiruzen, reporting with a scroll in his hand. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.